Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new show on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. This is Jupiter's Croc, a Spartacus podcast show. I don't know what it is. It's some sort of show where we, as fans of the series Spartacus, aired on Stars a few years back, we decided, we love it so much. It's been a while since we revisited this thing, and we are going to discuss it episode by episode until it's done. Joining me on this adventure in ancient Rome is Spartacus.
Yeah, I don't believe for a second that we're actually going to make this show all the way through. I think we get like 4 episodes and then life happens and we don't record again.
Quite possible. But we'll see. And over there in Memphis, Tennessee is, what would your name be? Romulus?
Yes, a Star Trek. Yes, named after a race of Star Trek characters who are known for having little to no emotions. This is yet another in the long line of soon-to-be failed podcasts that get no traction, and yet just another attempt to put content that goes out in the
Yeah, what are you doing with To Be Fair? Because To Be Fair is your show.
Yes. Yeah, Ronan. Well, what's up with To Be Fair?
I didn't ask for To Be Fair. You guys came up with the name and then never thought of anything for it.
You calling us pushers? Like we pushed a show on you that you did not want?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think tonight we sort of decided this is a strange show to discuss in the sense of like, where do you start? Obviously, the very first season of this was Blood and Sand with the great Andy Whitfield. But then, he unfortunately got diagnosed with cancer. And rather than sort of shutting down the show entirely, they decided to do a prequel series called Gods of the Arena that sort of showed, a lot of stuff that happened about 5 years prior. Sort of how all of our characters that we grew to know and love in Blood and Sand, how they sort of came to be in that place when we first started watching it. So we decided that, hey, we're just going to go in chronological order. We're going to start with Gods of the Arena, and we're just going to work our way through. And I think the prequel series is 6 episodes, whereas I think the main series might be 10 or 12. I don't remember exactly how many are in each one. But before we dive into this very first episode of Gods of the Arena, let's just go back to when we first sort of were watching this show, or when we first became aware of this show. I'll start. I remember, now I don't remember how this happened, but I was a classics minor in college, so I love anything that's ancient Rome and Greek and all of that kind of stuff. So I remember when this was announced, Rob Tappert was a producer on it. Basically, everybody involved in Evil Dead, all of those guys. I think Sam Raimi's a producer on this. This was billed or pitched as kind of like Hercules or Xena, but R-rated. It's going to be like for adults. And I was into it. And I remember I had the Xbox because we were playing Left 4 Dead back at that time, I think. And I remember I was able to view it every Friday, and I didn't have Stars. So I don't know if this was like they released it like on a Netflix or something, but I remember every Friday night.
Back then they had this kind of arrangement with Netflix where the episodes would air on Stars on like a Saturday or so. And then on Monday or something like that, a day or two later, they would pop up in Netflix. And this was also back in the Xbox days when you could get a Netflix viewing party, which is where your avatars would sit in a little theater and you could all watch movies together as a group. That was a wonderful feature that they got rid of.
Yes, because we can't have good things in life. So that's how I initially began watching this.
So continue on, Matt.
Yeah, that's how I started watching this. Steve, what do you remember about when this came out? Were you excited to watch this show, or did you sort of jump on the bandwagon when everyone was saying it was good? What was your hype level for it?
Oh, I didn't know this existed before you told me about it. So you were the reason that I watched Spartacus. And at the time that I started watching it, I watched it in air order rather than chronological order. And I almost didn't hang with it because of how terrible the beginning of Blood and Sand is. But I stuck with it. I hung around. I remember discussing things with Matt, and you would ask me, "Hey, who's your favorite character?" And I'd be, "Oh, character X," and you would just be like, because you knew what was going to happen to character X.
Yeah.
And almost nothing good ever happens to characters X, Y, Z, and so on.
Yeah.
So this is, I love this show. This is a show that I've revisited many, many times. Looking forward to doing it again.
Cool. So that's kind of where our heads were at. Ronan, were you excited for this, or did you just sort of jump on the bandwagon, or were you watching it right when it dropped?
I honestly don't remember. I don't think, because I didn't have stars either. So it's been too long. Because you say, oh, yeah, the show started a few years back. Try over 10 years is how long ago the show.
I have no concept of time.
But yeah, so the memory has left my mind of where exactly it probably was like you, or the old website that I don't know if we shall mention that you guys used to run. It might have been from there, but I believe that's where I kind of heard it from. And because we were playing like a Xbox at the time, it was just like, Ronan, you have to watch this. We're all going to watch it next such and such. And it's like, okay, and just got together, and yeah, it was great. And it's stuck with it. It is a show that, like Steve said, that I do go back and rewatch from time to time. Although I haven't rewatched it in quite a few years, so yeah, it's a lot of it's fresh memories. There are certain parts I'm like, yeah, I kind of remember this happening, but there's enough fuzziness there for me to not be kind of distracted when it comes on. Yeah.
I will say that when I go back and rewatch it, I start with episode 4 of Blood and Sand.
Well, we'll get there. Let's not spoil anything with Blood and Sand quite just yet, because we are on Gods of the Arena, the prequel sort of series to this. And Steve, I mean, you are a bear trap of plot details and whatnot. And I'm actually curious, will you be able to remember the names of these characters and walk us through?
Will not. That's the thing. Like, when I watch a show like this, or when I watch a show like Game of Thrones, like, characters will be talking and they'll just be like, oh, remember Mr. Baranatha Sarathian Smith? And I'm like, wait, who did they say? I have to pause it, and I have to go look at the Game of Thrones or Wikipedia and be like, who is this character that they just name drop? Because I can't remember that many syllables, and I have to refresh my memory and then go back. So I'm going to try.
I'm right there with you on that problem, but it's weird because, like, when I watched Game of Thrones, I had that exact problem. Like, I don't remember the names of any of these fucking people, but then I can remember the names of a million different weird-ass Star Wars characters. So I don't know if it's just, like, you got to be super into it or what, but I have that problem as well, remembering names, especially when they're weird.
This is not as bad. My problem with this is going to be, unlike the beginning of Blood and Sand, as I keep mentioning, this opening episode is fucking action-packed. Like, there is never a moment where just nothing is happening. So I'm you guys feel free to, and please feel free to jump in and fill in the gaps here. But we start with a flash forward to the end of Blood and Sand, and
spoilers is how it starts up.
Yes.
Yeah,
spoilers.
we should point that out. Like, if you're listening to this
Matt,
show,
go back and add a spoiler tag to the beginning of this.
Well, I don't necessarily think we need to have a spoiler tag for the series because we're going through it, but I do think that if anyone's listening to this and they've never seen Spartacus, don't necessarily start with the first 5 minutes of Gods of the Arena, because it recaps everything that happened in Blood and Sand. So
that's what I mean. Since we are starting with Gods of the Arena, you need to go back and tell people that if they have not seen Blood and Sand, they need to wait a few episodes until we get there.
Okay, then anybody listening, just wait a few episodes.
It's too late. We spoiled it.
Okay. Well, no, you didn't say exactly what happened in Blood and Sand.
Adiatus dies.
Okay, well, now you did.
That is the problem with talking about a prequel show like this, is that I believe, the prequel series is about 6 episodes. There is pretty much no fucking way we're going to get through this without mentioning some kind of a spoiler thing about what's going to happen to these characters, because that's also the nature of the show. It's like if you come into this show cold and somebody just cuts out that 5-minute or so opening epilogue, and you come into this show cold chronologically, like, things that are going to be big stinger, like, the nerd moment for like a Star Wars fan when, suddenly like a reference is made to a thing you remember. It's exactly what happens with this show. It's like, out of nowhere, oh, there's Crixus has a stone layer. There he is. Oh my God. And that's when you go, ee! But someone who hasn't watched the show and is starting from this chronologically has no fucking clue that this is going to become a not pivotably, a huge fucking character within the show. So that's kind of a problem with talking about a prequel in the actual order they're supposed to go in.
So do you think that people should watch Blood and Sand first?
I would say just, don't watch the prequel first. Watch Blood and Sand, because the prequel, honestly, it's like the prequel more sets up the second season than it does it's fan service for the first season and sets up the second season. So really, that kind of makes this episode pointless. Skip this episode and start listening when we talk about Blood and Sand, and then come back to this episode. So
TLDR, Matt, please appropriately spoiler tag this when you post it. Anyways, let's talk about what actually happens in the show. It opens with a flash forward. We see the end of Blood and Sand, the end of Badiatus and his Ludus, and then we cut back to what'd you say, about 5 years ago?
Yes.
Badiatus and Xena are at a match in a very, very tiny little arena, and this arena is apparently run or owned by, I think, Vedius. And Gannicus is going to come out and fight, but Badiatus is adamant that we need to wait for Tullius. Do you have all these names yet?
Who's Gannicus? You got to set up some of these characters. Who are these characters that you're talking about?
Gannicus is a gladiator, and he is going to fight in a tiny, tiny gladiator arena.
It is very tiny.
It is very tiny. But Gannicus is like the top gladiator of Badiatus' Ludus, and so he's the best that Badiatus has to. I'm going to get these names fucked up. He's the best that they have to offer, but Badiatus is trying to gain favor with Tullius, who is not there yet, and so Badiatus is trying to delay the fight, delay the kill as much as possible, so that Tullius can see Gannicus in action. He completely fails. So Gannicus gets rewarded with ladies. There's a different Doctore. You won't know what that means if you haven't seen Blood and Sand at this point.
And who plays Doctore?
Oh,
I would say it's Fat.
Is
Boba
it Boba Fett?
Yeah, it's Boba Fett.
I would say it's Fat Boba Fett, but as we all know at this point, the book of Boba Fett turns Boba Fett into a fucking idiot who isn't worth referencing to this character. So we, for the purposes of the show, will refer to him as Jango.
Old Doctore.
I will refer to him as Jango Fett.
Whatever.
Anyways, Badiatus is walking through the streets with Xena and his friend Salonius. They run into an old friend named Gaia. Xena and Gaia run off and gossip, because that's what ladies in ancient Rome do.
Ladies do be gossiping.
Badiatus gets the bright idea, hey, I can give myself an excuse to go and talk to Tullius by overpaying for one of his slaves, who turns out to be Crixus.
Yes.
Again, big deal when you get to Blood and Sand.
I'm going to go ahead and spoil something. And I don't know if Crixus is my favorite character in this entire show. I love this character. So when, after watching Blood and Sand and going back to the prequel, when I saw that moment, I'm like, exactly, yes. Absolutely. Who is your favorite character in this series overall?
Well, in season 1, it's Vero, who was the first character X that I mentioned to you. After that, it's probably either it's probably Animeus, but again, Animeus gets character X'd in season 2, so there's going to be a lot of that. Your favorite character can only be your favorite character for so long in this show.
Yeah. How about you,
I mean, spoilers. The Spartacus slave revolt didn't work, so none of these characters get a happy ending. Spoilers.
Yeah, this isn't some weird Quentin Tarantino rewriting history sort of thing. This is
No, this is not Inglorious Bastards. No, like Hitler, like the Romans don't get burned in an amphitheater in this one. Well, some do, but favorite characters, I would say like three of them. You would have Andy Whitfield Spartacus, but that's season one. As far as like the main crew of gladiators, like the big three, Gannicus is honestly my favorite. And
really okay.
yeah, and I do have like a special side note. It's like you guys may like I hate it or love it, but Asher is such a great fucking villain. Asher is one of my favorite characters.
Everyone in this show is great. So I mean,
yeah, they really are. But Asher, like high up there on my list of like just a great bad guy.
Yeah, he's super good, and his character arc over the series is what really makes him a great villain. So yeah, those are all fair. You can't really say that any character. I mean, there even a lot of the female characters in the show are awesome. Like I love.
You said that
Lucy
like
Lawless
it was
as
impossible for a female character to be awesome.
Well,
yeah,
no,
that's
because
very problematic.
No, I don't
Where's
mean it in a
Rachel?
problematic way. I mean it in the sense that, like, you would imagine, like, a show like this would give sort of short shrift to female characters since it's, like, hyper testosterone, male-driven gladiator sort of thing. But there's a lot of, like, deliciously evil female villains in this show. And they're all great also. Like, but yes,
Bianca.
what? Woof. We'll get to her. She'll pop up.
We'll get to her in 6 to 7 episodes.
Yeah. Now, Ronan, why is Gannicus your favorite?
Of the big three, the main gladiator type, because like again, more spoilers. The big three in terms of like the slave revolt was Spartacus and two like a Gaul named Crixus and a Celt named Gannicus, historically speaking. And the way he is portrayed in the show, at least, he's my favorite because Spartacus is the very. I don't want to. He is the very direct, calm, kind of default, standard issue military leader. Crixus is the generic kind of he's the Vegeta to his Goku, and then you have that's a reference Matt will not get, but Steve gets it.
Dragon Ball Z.
I don't think Matt is that far gone.
Yeah, I know what that is.
But then you have Gannicus, who through the whole time, right up until again, this goes off in season 2 because again, this is why season 1 is setting up season 2. It's not so much a prequel, but he spends season 2 not wanting any part of it. Yeah, because he's just like, I'm a free slave. I've walked around Rome. This is this is just going to end with you hung up on a tree, right? You're just going to get crucified, which kind of an ominous foretelling of what happens in season 4. So,
Gannicus is very
3,
different.
That's right. Yeah.
Gannicus is very different from the other gladiators that we come to know in Blood and Sand because, you sort of think of like Spartacus as sort of like Leonardo, Crixus is kind of like Raphael, and Gannicus is like Michelangelo. He just wants to drink, party, have lots and lots of sex with many, many beautiful women and not take life seriously whatsoever.
As Michelangelo is known to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's even a moment in this first episode where is it Oenomaus comes out there because Gannicus is supposed to fight the next day, and he's basically like tipping himself over a giant cliff. Just he could fall to his death at any point.
He is wasted singing the greatest song ever written by anyone ever. That if I sang the lyrics to, would instantly get
Croc.
Yeah,
Croc is what you got to replace that stuff with.
Instantly demonetized. Well, not demonetized. You get the idea. It would instantly hurt the channel.
Yeah. So continue, Steve.
All right. So Batiatus overpays for Crixus. The Gaia moves into their ludus and hangs out with Xena for the rest of the episode. The next day, Batiatus and Salonius go and meet up with Tullius.
It's good Salonius, Steve.
Yeah, good Salonius and Batiatus go seek out Tullius. They have a meeting. Vedius is there. Vedius and Batiatus obviously hate each other, and so they agree that tomorrow morning in the market, not in any sort of arena, but just out in the street, it's going to be one of Batiatus's gladiators versus one of I already forgot the V guy. His name,
Vedius.
Vedius, yes. And so they agree to this, but Batiatus stupidly says any one of my guys could beat your guys blindfolded. And so the next day during the fight, out rolls Gannicus, and Vedius says, "Well, wait, where's your blindfold?" And Batiatus tries to play it off like, "No, that's not a thing. That was just
I was just fucking around.
That was just me fucking around. That was me peacocking." And Tullius and Vedius are like, "No, like that is the challenge." And so Gannicus gets blindfolded, and Gannicus wins because later on he says that the other guy grunts so loud that Gannicus knew where he was at all times.
Well, it is that whole sequence establishes how much of a badass Gannicus is right from the jump, because we don't see this character in Blood and Sand. He's not there, so we know that he's going to show up in what's the name? War of the Damned. Was that the
War of the Damned is 3.
Yeah, War of the Damned is the 3rd.
Vengeance is 2.
Vengeance, that's right. We know he's going to show up in Vengeance, and we have to. We've spent 10, 12 episodes, however much it is, with all these gladiators that we know and love. We have to get on board with Gannicus immediately from the very first episode of this. And they establish, like, okay, this guy, when he joins up with Spartacus and Crixus and the gang, they're going to fuck some shit up in Vengeance. And I think they did a great job of this, because, he kills the guy blindfolded.
He kills the guy blindfolded, and then also in his very first fight, he knows that he is so good compared to his tiny arena opponent that he just puts the swords down and fist fights the other guy who has a sword and shield.
They have they go a little try hard with Gannicus to make you like, because they have to establish early on that he is on par with Crixus and Spartacus, as you mentioned, because they got a whole show, like they had a whole season showing how badass those two were. And this, they have to set us up real quick to know that this guy is on par with them. Like, clear equals, nerd fight, who wins between the three of them. I don't know. It's that they have to set him up real quick, which a worst written show or a show with a worse actor would have fucked this up royally. But it does not come across as try hard. It does not come across as cringe. Like he's like, as Steve mentioned, it's like, his first fight, he gets a little cut, gets pissed off, throws his swords down, and just fist fights the dude, and then beats a guy blindfolded, literally blindfolded.
Yes.
Yeah, so Dustin Clare plays Gannicus, and he's so damn charismatic. Like, you just like this guy, and you want to hang out with this guy. You're like, I want to see where this goes. And it's interesting, because when I first watched this, for whatever reason, it seems obvious in hindsight now, but I'm like, how are they going to end this? That Gannicus is he's gone for the entire season of Blood and Sand. Like, what are they possibly going to do? And then it's like, oh, they do something so obvious, but at the time I wasn't even thinking about it. We won't spoil it yet, but there's a reason why he's not in Blood and Sand.
Yeah.
Continue. Oh, I will point out. Sorry, cutting you off one more time. John Hannah is fucking great in this entire series. Like, as Batiatus, I feel like he's like the backbone of this show.
That is something that I want to bring up with you guys, because I want to know if you have the same issue that I have. All throughout Gods of the Arena, and for about the first 6 episodes of Blood and Sand, until Batiatus does something unforgivable, I fucking love Batiatus. I know he's a piece of shit. I know he's a goddamn slave owner, but I root for him all throughout the prequel and about half of Blood and Sand. And that probably says something about me, but he's fucking great.
That says more about the show and his acting, Steve. Because, he's absolutely, all of the Romans in the show, they didn't write a single sympathetic Roman in this entire show, with the possible exception of what's his name, Varro, because he's a Roman who volunteers himself.
Yeah,
they
didn't write a single positive free person in this show until maybe the final season.
More or less. It goes to, that's just the strong writing and the strong acting. Again, it's I like Asher because he's such a great bad guy, and all the bad guys are great in different ways. Batiatus and Lucretia are both made for each other, because you get the feeling at some point they're going to try some kind of evil villain turn on each other. No, Does not happen.
It's like a power couple, an
Yeah.
evil power
Like
couple.
they're evil, but they are also completely in love and devoted to each other. But like Badiatus is scheming. He is completely okay with backstabbing people, robbing people, murdering people. And I find myself up until a point that we'll get to in about 12 episodes, like I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for his schemes to work.
Well, what's really interesting about that, Steve, is so we watch Blood and Sand first, right? And we see what Badiatus ultimately does that's going to make you hate him. But when we watch Gods of the Arena when it released after this, I'm fully back on his side,
Yes.
knowing that he's going to be a horrible, evil asshole later on down the road. And it's like at the end of this episode, I'm like, I just want him to get some revenge on this asshole.
Yeah, I watch.
You also
I watch-
know he is, because we know how his character turns out. We're just seeing how he gets from point A to point B. This is how he goes down the road of becoming that evil asshole.
I'm watching Gods of the Arena, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if just one of these schemes actually worked, maybe he wouldn't have to be such a piece of shit in the second half of Blood and Sand.
I will also point out that Lucretia, Lucy Lawless's character, when we see her in Blood and Sand, she is like straight evil. Like she plays the Lucretia character completely differently here than she does 5 years later in the timeline when she's at her full like Emperor Palpatine-esque powers. And I really love sort of seeing how that changes. And they bring in that Gaia character to kind of be the one that sort of starts corrupting her with the drugs and the orgies and things of that nature. But I like how she seems kind of pretty innocent in this first episode until, her party pal comes along and starts messing everything up.
So,
Yes.
like 2 notes. First, I will also add that Lucy Lawless aged like a fine wine. God damn.
Amen. Amen.
Second, I remember, this is a vivid memory I have from this watching like a Gods of the Arena for the first time. First episode comes up and she's like, look, you hear this voice say, Lucretia, you turn around. And like I was watching this at about the same time I was going through another show called Dexter. And I just finished up the 2nd season of Dexter. So when this is popping up, I hear that voice in turn, and it's like, oh my god, it's her! It's that fucking bitch.
I remember, and it's unavoidable. We have to discuss this. One of the big aspects of this show is a lot of sex scenes. It borders on Skinamax territory at times.
It goes way beyond Skinamax.
Well, I remember watching just Blood and Sand, and I was shocked that Lucy Lawless not only got naked, but had so many sex scenes. And I was like, I'll never look at Xena the same way again.
And we appreciate it.
Fine wine.
Yeah, and in this episode, every woman they introduce gets naked in this very first episode. Everyone's got to have a sex scene. Every single one of them.
Not some of them, but yeah, the bulk of them.
Who doesn't?
Her main her main like her main slave that she has by her side in this season. It's
her main slave. What isn't that the slave that has a sex scene with Anameus?
Okay, yeah, I guess she did.
Yes!
Lose his mind. All right, God damn it. Let me finish the plot if you want to get this done in an hour.
Yes, go.
Okay, Gannicus wins the blindfolded fight, and Tullius is impressed. He's like, hey, maybe Gannicus belongs in the arena because they're building, what is it, the Colosseum? They're building the giant gladiator arena, and the opening games are going to be sometime presumably in the next 5 years, and Badiatus is adamant that if my Ludus is going to survive, I need to have people in the opening games of this new arena. And so Badiatus goes to meet Tullius, and Badiatus thinks that they're going to discuss putting Gannicus in more games. Turns out that's not the case. Tullius is an ally of Vedius, and what they're actually planning to do is buy Gannicus away from Badiatus, and Badiatus is adamant that nope, that's not going to happen. And so they kill Badiatus's bodyguard. They put a bag over Badiatus's head, beat the shit out of him, like literally piss in his face. And the whole time it's cutting back and forth between him being beaten and Gaia and Xena having an orgy.
Yes.
That's the end of the show.
Having an opioid sex orgy.
Now, what's really interesting about this, and they describe this in the scene, is Batiatus bought Crixus from Tellius. So from Tellius's perspective, he's like, well, wait a minute. You should offer me the same thing. Like, you bought my slave. Why are you now denying that I can buy one of your slaves? And they're sort of using that sort of power dynamic and struggle, which I thought was really interesting, because what this show overall does really, really well is it gives the villains and the bad guys legitimate reasons, like, as to why they're acting that way. It's not just 100% we're just evil for evil's sake. They always have a motive or a logical reason as to, well, this should be a fair trade. You bought Crixus, I'm buying Gannicus, but you're denying me buying Gannicus. That's
Everything
not fair.
is a transaction.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, Ronan, what did you think of this first episode, revisiting it?
It holds up very well. That, because Steve went over the plot, and that's basically all the plot. I want to, because we were just talking about Batiatus's character. It should be known that, I was talking, I mentioned, he had his friend Good Salonius, and in Gods of the Arena, no, in Blood and Sand, they're they're kind of fake friends, they're frenemies, while secretly plotting behind each other's back. And this show shows you how this happened. But there are lots of little character moments that kind of set up the fact that, Batiatus was always kind of a dick to him. For some this bizarre reason, while they're talking to each other, walking through the market, they decided, what would be great? Let's have them go to a latrine and continue this conversation, taking a shit and pissing.
So they did in ancient Rome.
This is true. But this is the odd choice to be like, yeah, let's do that. But just a nice little character nudge moment. You get notices that Batiatus grabs a towel, he's wiping his hands, and Salonius holds his hands out for the towel, and Batiatus doesn't give it to him. He has to kind of reach over and take it from him, because Batiatus just pays no attention to the fact that he needs this thing too. He's too concerned with his needs, and there are some little tidbits like that scattered throughout the show. It's like, yeah, that's a good little moment right there.
Yeah, Batiatus will fuck over even his friends, and he'll give him little digs and slights, when it suits his needs. And yeah, I agree with you. They sort of show those things building up over time. What I also loved about this is I love Oenomaus as well. He's such a great character, and in this one, he just wants to go back to fight because he's a great gladiator. Well, they say he's the only one that survived the shadow of death, or whoever.
Theocles, right?
Yeah, Theocles. Which, man, give me that prequel show. I want to see what that was all about. And he's been injured, but again, Batiatus, to get to your point, Ronan, Batiatus just completely overlooks Oenomaus's wishes and desires. He wants to be a gladiator again, and he thinks he's the best. He thinks he's better than Gannicus. He's like, look, Gannicus has never survived against the guy that I did. I'm fully healed. I'm ready to go. And there's even those moments when Batiatus comes out watching the gladiators sort of train, and Oenomaus is like, sorry, bud, and just kicks the shit out of one of the top gladiators.
Yeah, it's Barca.
Barca.
He's training with Barca. He sees Batiatus, and he kind of looks at him, he's like, apologies, and beats the shit out of him. Kind of implying that the whole time they were training, he's just holding back. Yeah,
and so you realize Oenomaus is a badass, and then when you see him in Blood and Sand, and eventually, because we won't spoil it, but he's not on board necessarily with the idea of revolting, against this, and how that changes. So many, every character in this, I just like them all. I like Oenomaus' wife. Was her name Melita or something?
Sounds
There's
right.
too many names. Too many names.
Yeah, I want to point out that I gave you as brief as I could make the synopsis. There are tons of more minor plot points that we have to skip over for the purposes of not having this be a 3-hour podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. And they really cast the villains well. The guy who plays Vedius, he's just got the most punchable face ever. You just he comes out with this stupid little smirk and his dumbass haircut. He's like, Batiatus, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I just want Batiatus to beat the shit out of this guy. But it's it's like, how is he going to get out of it? We know he gets out of it, but the whole show is about how is he going to get out of it? How is he going to outsmart all of these more powerful people around them? Steve, you revisited this episode. What are you thinking of? It's called Past Transgressions. How'd you feel about this episode?
I loved it. Like, I'm immediately back into it. I am probably going to go watch episode 2 after we're done here, and then I'm probably going to watch episode 2 again before we record next week. I'm 100% back into this show. Fantastic opening.
It holds up.
Yeah. Are there any characters in this show that you guys can think of off the top of your head that you don't like? That you're just like, this character I'm not really super into, or I don't really like how their story plays out in the end. I'm not into them. Or is it just like everybody is
I have 2 gripes about this show. One is the opening of Blood and Sand, which we'll get to. I only have, and I've thought about this over and over again, I only have one more gripe, and it doesn't happen until season 3. So no, I'm happy for now. I like all of the characters, even the characters that I'm supposed to hate. The show does a great job of making me hate them.
Yeah, and I think I might know what your gripe is in season 3. I think Ronan and I might have spoken a little bit about a gripe that we agree with in season 3, but that's many episodes down the road before we get there.
About 30 or so.
Yeah, Ronan, final thoughts on this first episode, Past Transgressions. What'd you think?
I kind of quipped up earlier. It's like, yeah, the show holds up. Like, absolutely, it's. Like, yeah, you were also saying, it's like, is there a character who, like, you have an issue with how their story kind of plays out? And it's like, well, I mean, that's mostly all of them, but it's written as a tragedy, more or less. It was like, almost nobody gets a happy ending in this show. Spoilers, and all of that does is just kind of further fuel your connection to it, and you watch it and you get further hooked by this because you're like, yeah, like such and such has to get their up and comings. Come on, get your up and comings, and then they do, and you're like, yay, knowing only a few more episodes from now, it's like they're going to get another up and comings from somebody else. So it holds up well. It's got it's I guess the best way I can describe it is this is a guy soap opera.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is like, man cave soap opera. If you want to go down to your man cave and see some pretty ladies and strong ass dudes chopping heads off and blood flying everywhere. If I had any criticism of this first episode, I would say that I don't feel like some of the CG and the green screen work has held up. I think the story does for sure, but I think some of the, like in that initial gladiator arena, that really small one, like when they chop off the heads and stuff, it looks pretty hokey, like some of the CG blood and stuff like that. But I can get over it because I'm here for the story, and I'm not too concerned about anything like that. But generally speaking, though, I think that I'm watching it and I know that the background of the Ludus and stuff is all CG, but I don't really register it because I'm so involved in watching the characters and seeing what they're doing. So I loved it. I can't wait to watch this, continue watching this. Any final thought, anything else that we got to say, or is that it?
Well, I guess that's it. Yeah, Steve, do you have anything?
Nope, gonna go watch episode 2.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for listening to the inaugural episode of Jupiter's Croc. YouTube. We said Croc.
That's a fantastic fucking name. You're welcome.
Yes. We will be back. We probably post these once a week until we're done. So we'll be back next week on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel with another episode of Gods of the Arena. What did you think? Do you like Spartacus? Do you like this show? Do you think we're way off base? Do you think we're wasting our time by cluttering your YouTube feed with another piece of content from us that you don't want and you don't want to see? Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We will be happy to discuss it with you, and let us know who your favorite gladiator is. With that, we bid you adieu. Welcome, everyone, to take 2 of episode 2 of Jupiter's Croc. My name is Matthew. I'm not even getting into the opening. Joining me tonight, hopefully, is Ronan, not on a delay.
I was not on a delay, all right? That was all you. All you.
Oh my God! And here in Nebraska with myself, Steve.
Yep. I'm here. I'm excited for Ronan's opinion on things. 4 full seconds after we asked him a question about it.
Yep, and we've tried, dear listeners, we tried to record this about, I don't know, 2 minutes ago, and I got an error message saying Ronan fucked it all up. So we are trying take
Literally,
two.
that's what the message said.
Yeah, it just said Ronan.
It did not say it on
fucked
my
all up.
end. It said that there was a random error. And, like I think Matt is just projecting his technological failures onto me, because
Now-
that is what narcissists do. That is what psychopaths do.
Here's the thing: I am Magneto. I fully agree with that, but I own up to my problems. You, sir, are the one who's not owning up to the fact that you fucked it up. If I fucked it up, I would just say I Magneto'd it. Let's try again. Regardless, let's get into this, guys.
Unless you were plotting a bit, which is exactly what's happening right now.
I
call shenanigans, sir.
I am not intelligent enough to plan a bit.
Shenanigans have been declared. I just want the record to show shenanigans.
And it would be wonderful to talk about Spartacus now.
It would. We are on episode 2 of Gods of the Arena, the prequel series to Spartacus, Blood and Sand. And this is a show that we love quite a bit. So thank you for the listeners who have listened to the first episode. We are going to dive right into this second episode because, I won't spoil my feelings on this episode, but we'll turn it over to Master Explainer of the details of plot, the plot connoisseur, if you will, Mr. Steve.
Ploticus.
Yes.
Spartacus.
I'll start throwing that as my name in the Zencaster recording.
Spartacus.
Episode 2 is called Missio, and Missio is the Missio. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's the symbol that gladiators give to surrender and request mercy. That's going to become very relevant later on in the plot synopsis. It opens up. It's a week after Badiatus got his ass kicked by Vedius and Tullius, and he is ready for revenge. So he's trying to plot a way to get around Vedius, to usurp the meeting that he is about to have with some famous Roman guy. Before that, good Salonius is out in the marketplace buying special wine that he is going to give to Badiatus. Good Salonius.
That's what everyone calls him.
Yeah,
it's true.
Because he's good.
His first name is Good. His last name is Salonius. So Mr. Salonius, he's buying wine for Badiatus, and Tullius interrupts him and says, "Hey, let me buy that wine for you because we got a deal to discuss." And Tullius's deal is, you are going to convince your friend Badiatus to sell me Gannicus. Otherwise, not only will Badiatus be barred from any future Gladiator games, you will as well, which it didn't quite make sense to me, because as far as I know, at this point, Salonius is not a part of any games. He doesn't have a Ludus or whatever.
No, he has
he's
a
always
Ludus.
had the Ludus. Yeah,
he has a Ludus, but he has not actually been able to get anybody in the games. And so this guy is basically saying, I'm going to bar you forever from the new arena and everything. You'll never be able to get somebody in.
Have we seen his Ludus yet? 'Cause I know he has people in the subsequent in season 1 of Spartacus. But at this point, I was confused. Like, is he already in the gladiator business? If so, why is he buddies with what I assume would be a rival gladiator person? But whatever. Good Salonius.
I think they're just friends. I just think they're good friends with each other.
They're just bros, going out doing, gladiator stuff. They're just bros,
They're both slumming it, right? Because they're those kind of Ludus operators who wish that they could have a man in the games, right? And they keep getting sort of, looked over, passed over, however you want to phrase it, and then it's just kind of like they bonded as friends. Like, yeah, we both wish we could be in there and have some people in there. But that's why in episode 1, Salonius was actually happy for him when Gannicus was able to be in those games, because he's like, hey man, at least you got somebody in there. I don't got anybody in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just it's a little confusing because we're seeing good Salonius rather than shitbag Salonius, who he becomes in the future.
Yes. Don't they all become shitbags?
Everyone is a shitbag to begin with, which is what we're going to get to later on in this episode. Anyways, Badiatus completely, totally a shitbag.
No.
Badiatus completely rejects, just absolutely out of hand rejects doing business with Tullius, and so he enacts a plan. But he is in such a shit mood that one of his new, they're not a gladiator yet, but one of his gladiator recruits is having like a very playful like gladiator bout with one of the other trainees. And he just kind of like laughingly throws up the Missio sign. And Batiatus says, "Send that fucking man to the mines." The house of Batiatus does not surrender.
Send that fucking slave to the mines.
Yeah, and the mines, we don't. We're like 2 years away in like real time before we would have seen the mines. Or I guess we'd be 1 year away before we'd actually see the mines in the show. But even to these slaves, like the mines are known as like a fate worse than death. So this guy is very upset. And we'll find out later on that the current Doctori, who is also Boba Fett and Jango Fett, is very, very upset about sending a man to the mines.
Well, there's one thing small detail, but it's going to become a big detail, I think, and then maybe next episode that you kind of passed over. When Good Salonius shows up with the wine, and Batiatus finds out that the wine is actually from Tullius or whatever, and gets pissed off. Before he's doing that, he's admiring all of these statues in the Ludus, and he's mentioning all of these great champions of Capua, but they were all gladiators from his father. Like his father sort of oversaw all these great gladiators, and you kind of find out here that Batiatus's real motivation is he wants to sort of like be better than his father, or at the very least be seen in the same light as his father by sort of being able to train and have his own champion. That's why he wants That's why he doesn't want to give up Gannicus, because he believes Gannicus can be champion of Capua, and he wants that sort of glory and honor for himself and not pass it along to sort of like, oh, you're not as good as your dad. Your dad had all these other great champions, and you're not as good.
Yeah, I don't know. Ploticus didn't think that was very important.
Well, Ploticus
so moving on.
Should go to the fucking mines.
Batiatus hatches a plot. There is a man named Varus who is coming into town, and he is coming to the town for the express purpose of reviewing Vedius's gladiators for games that Varus is going to hold. Batiatus says, "Fuck that noise," and so he hatches a plan to lure Vedius away and then insert himself in Vedius's place. So he sends Asher, the guy that was going to go to the mines, and Asher's buddy, whose name I don't remember. And so they lure Vedius away. Indus, who is the mines guy, says, come follow me, and I will take you to where Varus is. And Vedius is an idiot and follows him. He gets his ass kicked. He gets pissed on by Asher's buddy, kind of reenacting the beatdown that Batiatus got in the previous episode. And then the Indus, the guy who was sentenced to the mines, he's like, yes, I don't have to go to the mines. I'm going to go back to gladiator training. And then Asher kills him at Batiatus's request because Vedius saw his face and could trace him back to Batiatus.
Beginning of Asher's downward spiral.
A lot of trends that have become important later in the show, they start here. This episode sets is the lot of first that happen later on down the line.
Yeah. And I don't want to spoil my review for this episode, but I will. I think this is the first great episode. In chronological order, if we're going that way, the first great episode of this show, because it's less focused. Like, the first episode was like, okay, we got to make sure every single one of these actresses gets naked and has a sex scene. We gotta make sure that's our priority. Let's give the people what they want right away. This one, we get some of that in there, but this one is more about, okay, we're setting up the story is going in motion now. How all these characters will eventually become what they become in Blood.
This is the first time we get to see Batiatus scheme, which is what he's very good at. We'll learn in future episodes.
This also sets up the trend of sometimes when we see titties, it's not always a good thing. When you're kind of like, oh, this isn't right.
We'll get there.
Jeez.
Don't use the R word. We'll get slammed with the algorithm. Use SA. That's the word that people need to say on YouTube.
Yep, got it. 10-4. So Batiatus's gladiators beat down Vedius, and the deal that Asher and Indus, who is now dead, and Asher's friend made is that if this plan is successful, then they will get the mark of the Brotherhood without actually going through the process of becoming an actual gladiator, which comes back to bite several people in the ass later on. But while Vedius is getting his ass kicked, Gaia and Xena run into Varys, who I swear is a young Bruce Campbell from the original Evil Dead, like time traveled to the early 2010s to play this role. But
they really do a good job of casting people with unique Roman faces in this show. It's like a Roman when you see them in this show, at least a Roman male, because they all have punchable faces, and they look like total assholes that you're just like, oh, the goddamn Romans. You hate them when you first see them.
I thought this guy looked so much like Bruce Campbell that I actually went to look and see if they were related in some way.
Oh, I did. I never got Bruce Campbell from him.
Yeah, I don't see that vibe. I mean, maybe if you turn your head
says
slightly,
you're dumb.
Spartacus agrees.
Gaia and Xena lure not Bruce Campbell's evil twin back to Batiatus' Ludus, and Batiatus kind of tricks Varys into viewing a fight between Gannicus and Crixus, and Varys eventually agrees to hire Gannicus for his games, but not before revealing himself as an absolute fucking creep and forcing Gannicus to have sex with the wife of Oenomaus.
Hold on, Ploticus. You're missing a lot of.
I don't want this to be a 2 hours episode.
We're only 12 minutes in. Detailicus is needed here. So there's we can't just gloss over the fight between Gannicus and Crixus, because
I was going to lead into later on as to how that affects Oenomaus.
Okay, go ahead, Ploticus. I'll step back and let you go through, do your thing. I apologize.
Thank you. I accept. Creepy Bruce Campbell, not Bruce Campbell, forces Gannicus to have sex with Oenomaus' wife. It's incredibly uncomfortable, but that is what Varys is into.
While he's masturbating in front of them.
Jesus. Yep. He's beating it like it owes him money while watching Gannicus assault his best friend's wife because Spartacus, because Romans. Ultimately, though, Varys agrees. Yes, Batiatus, I want your man Gannicus, and basically all the men in your ludus to come and fight in my games. And Batiatus is very thankful to Gannicus and Melita, but tells them, hey, you've elevated this house, but how about we never speak of this again?
Like there is a clear threat involved in that too. In his thanks, so like, oh yes, there is no. I understand what you did was rough, and you probably didn't like it. Give them wine or something. No. He thanks them and then threatens them to keep quiet.
Yeah. Well, the big thing here is the power dynamic, right? Because during that sequence, you kind of realize. I mean, they say it multiple times throughout the show, and it's obvious when you think about it at all, but they are just slaves. And Batiatus even says in that scene with Roman Bruce Campbell, he's like, they're just slaves. They'll do whatever I ask them to. And multiple times throughout this, even when he goes after Boba Fett, he tells Boba Fett, you are just a slave. You are here to do what I want and what I command when I want. He tells Gannicus, he's like, hey man, you got to go in here and display yourself for this guy and do whatever he wants.
Yeah, Gannicus is easily the most important person in the house of Batiatus right now, and Batiatus tells him, if Varys, not Bruce Campbell, tells you to suck his dick, you will savor every drop. Like, Batiatus does not care.
Yep. Until his balls go dry or something like that. And you just kind of realize, and as soon as you see like Melita in there, and when the Roman Bruce Campbell's like, no, have sex with her right there, and you're just like, oh no,
because it's so casual. Have him fuck this one.
Yeah, they don't view them as people. They just view them as property to do with, for their own pleasure and everything like that. And that's what it was back then.
Let's explain slavery to the audience. I don't think they understand.
How about we not?
The show does a really good job of depicting sort of the loss of humanity that even these people that the story, like the screenwriters are like, we're going to imbue Gannicus with humanity. We're going to imbue, like there's a great sequence with Gannicus and Anameus when Melita shows up, and she has a conversation with him earlier on in the episode. She's like, what are you going to do when, like, because they're like, hey, I want to fight. Gannicus is like, I want to fight Anameus in the arena. I want to see who's the better one. And they're kind of like, they're good friends, and they're just going, oh, I beat you. And she's like, look, one of you is going to have to kill the other. What are you actually going to do when this happens? He's like, oh, I'm just going to fuck my way out of it. I guess I'll just have to do something like that. And then he gets stuck in this situation. And it's even weirder because it almost straddles that line where at a certain point she's almost like,
it's
okay,
very uncomfortable, but they
yeah,
both kind of get into it towards the end.
yeah, and then she's super guilty afterwards, and that's going to lead to more and more stuff as we go on. But yeah, it is a very awkward scene, and they keep cutting the close-ups of all like Xena and Badiatus and Roman Bruce Campbell and Gaia like licking their lips and watching this
intercut with scenes of violence, because while all this is going on,
Yes.
Anameus is having to fight Django Fett.
Yeah, and
We're
why?
not there yet, so that's the other kind of the other like side plot going on throughout this episode. While Badiatus is trying to trick Varys into having Badiatus supply people for his games, Doctore is very, very upset with Badiatus's decision towards Asher and Asher's buddy. Doctore is like incredulous that that Badiatus is going to give these two people the mark of the Brotherhood, because they haven't earned it. They didn't go through the actual process. And Doctore treats them like shit. And Asher's like, wait, is there not an oath that I'm supposed to recite? Doctore, Boba Fett's like, I'm not going to have this fucked up any more than this, and just fucking brands him. Prior to this, Badiatus tells Doctore that basically, I'm tired of your shit. Onomaus did such a great job training up Crixus, because Crixus had a chance at beating Gannicus, like world's greatest gladiator. Crixus had a fighting chance after just a little bit of time working directly with Onomaus. So Badiatus is planning to just get rid of Doctore. I don't know what was going to happen to him, but he's going to make Onomaus the new Doctore that we see throughout the rest of the series. Current Doctore is very upset by this, and so he goes and picks a fight with Onomaus and forces Onomaus to kill him, in which Doctore is actually proud of him for doing so. I trained you well.
Well, didn't Badiatus fire him? Doesn't Badiatus tell Boba Fett, like, you're fucking done? Like,
Yeah,
you're my dad's man.
Then? Like, is he just going to be a house slave then? Is he
I think he just becomes another gladiator. And I think that's part of the reason why Boba Fett was like, Tamura Morrison is great in this role. Like, he's so awesome. He's got this gnarly scar across his face, and he just has that look to him like he's a badass. The opposite of Book of Boba Fett. But I think he was just kind of like, you're going to go back to being a regular gladiator, and he was going to lose all of his station and his status amongst all those dudes. And I think he antagonized Onomaus into forcing the fight in order to kill him. He was either going to kill Onomaus, where he'd still have to retain because there'd be nobody else left. Who is Badiatus going to choose at that point? If Onomaus is dead, he's probably just going to be like, okay, I'm going to default. I have to stick with Boba Fett. Or Onomaus was going to give him a glorious death in battle, where he could be like, I trained you well, and be on his way. That's how I saw it.
I saw it more, let me interrupt Kiss here. I saw it more as more or less this was his way of making sure that Onomaus could actually do the job, and maybe it's some kind of like a symbolic thing where it's like, okay, if you're going to become the new Del Toro, you have to kill the old one, and that's why there was a smile as he forced him to finally kill him. It's like, okay, yeah, you're good enough to train other gladiators.
Yeah, possibly. I could be a little bit of everything.
I mean,
honestly.
my take was Doctore went out there wanting to die to some extent at this point. But who knows? Like, hey, they left it open to interpretation, so good on the show for giving us something to talk about. But the end of the episode is all of these things coming together. Onomaus has killed his mentor essentially. He's very upset about it. Gannicus and Melita are obviously very upset over the traumatic experience that they just suffered. Varys says,
traumatic orgasm they both just experienced.
Varys commits to hiring.
It wasn't me who said it. I
Gannicus.
just want that on the record.
Shut up! Shut up! Varys commits to hiring Gannicus and the gladiators of Badiatus to operate at his games. And so while Onomaus and Melita and Gannicus are all very sullen, they've all had very rough days for various reasons. Gaia, Xena, and Badiatus just go and have another orgy, and that's how the episode ends.
Got to throw in some orginess in
Of
here.
course.
There's not a whole lot of pleasant nudity in this episode. I feel like they had to throw that in at the very end to be like, we got to give the people something here.
Yeah.
I like the moment when this is before Crixus. Yeah, it has to have been before Crixus and Gannicus sort of fight, where Crixus is kind of creeping in the shadows as Gannicus is walking back and like kind of jumps him a little bit, and Gannicus is throws him up against the wall. He's like, "Don't you talk to me until you get like the mark of the Brotherhood," essentially. And then Crixus asks he's like, "I don't care about that. I just want to know how to become a champion." And Gannicus is like, "Never fucking lose." I was like, that's such a great line. He's like, never fucking lose. Yeah, and it's just, and I love the fight between him and Crix. He starts kicking Crixus's ass at first. Like, he is literally kicking his ass. But you don't quite know. It's like, is it just because he was super cocky when he's fighting Crixus? Because Crixus is essentially a nobody at this point in time. Is it just that he was so cocky and that's what allowed Crixus to sort of get some hits in on him and push him a little bit, or was it actually Crixus's skill set? I'm going to go with skill set.
A little column A, a little column B. Like, Gannicus was fucking around. He wasn't taking it seriously. He didn't realize that Crixus had gotten, pretty okay at this. And so Crixus catches him sleeping. Yeah, more or less, to use a phrase. And like, that kind of takes Gannicus back a little bit. It's like, oh, what the fuck's happening here? And, so little column A, little column B. Crixus got better than Gannicus realized, but ultimately Gannicus was just fucking around. Had he went in there like, this asshole is going to die, like, let's suppose hypothetically, Crixus had said, or he was super cocky Crixus already, even though, he hadn't earned it and was like talking mad shit, I believe Gannicus would have just killed him in like 3 seconds flat. But again, he, column A, column B, he was fucking around, and then, Crixus legitimately got the better of him because he wasn't paying attention.
And we should also point out that Crixus only survives because Gaia says, let him live, because she wants to fuck him. They've established that pretty clearly.
Gladiators. I also wouldn't bring up, there's compared to everything else, this is a very minor plot point. But there's a lot of animosity towards, or between Gaia and Badiatus throughout the episode. And eventually, of course, they have an orgy, so you assume that they're on good terms again. But Badiatus is trying to get Varys to, hire him for his games. Meanwhile, Gaia is interested in Varys because Varys is single and rich. And so she's trying to worm tongue him into kind of, setting her up. And so Badiatus, there's multiple times where it seems like, all right, Badiatus is going to go in for the kill. It's like, now is my time to get Varys to commit to hiring Gannicus. And Gaia like shuts him down. It's like, no, it's not ready yet. And then she continues to try to be the focus of Varys' attention. But it looks like these two are going to have a massive fallout is what it's kind of building to. But then at the end, they, everything works out. So now they're good fuck buddies again, along with Xena.
Yeah, and you don't really know, like, this Gaia character. She comes across as slimy, right? Like, she's conniving and she's got ulterior motives for everything that she's doing.
There's always got to be something in it for her. Like, even in the first episode, when she ran into Xena and she's like, "Oh, yeah, we're such good friends. Yes, I've missed you for so long. Hey, can I crash on your couch for a little bit?"
Drink all of your wine. Can we maybe do some opium? Come on, man. Come on.
She's like, come on, take your top off. Everyone wants to see Xena's boobs. Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be fine. Smoke some of this. Yeah, I
And
think
she was
that.
correct. It was
Yeah.
great, and it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. Totally fine with it. Ronan, your overall thoughts on this episode? How do you feel about Mizio?
This is a very good episode. Has mentioned before. This is also very important, story wise for the entire, because this is the moment a lot of things get set up. This is the moment where we see Badiata starting to plan murders and get very conniving and devious, which, spoilers, that becomes a thing he does on the regular throughout the rest of the show, throughout the rest of his time. And this is the first instance of that. This is where this is where that part of his side was born. This is where he starts to use gladiators as his hitman and as his bodyguards. Because his original bodyguard dies, like a bitch, and so he's like, no. I have a whole ludus full of gladiators, like death machines down there. I'm just going to take one of them with me, and that's what he does now. This is the birth of Asher. Has his essentially his shadow broker, the guy who gets him all the information and does all the dirt and all the underhanded stuff in the house. All the shit gets set up in this episode. So this is a very important episode throughout the rest of the show.
And we should point out that Asher, at this point in the timeline, he still really wants to be a gladiator. So, he's doing everything that Badiatus tells him that he needs to do because he feels like, okay, that's going to get me, the mark so that I can then become a gladiator and have respect from all of my fellow brothers in arms here, so to speak. And I think this is the moment, because I'm going to have to watch, obviously, the rest of the episodes here, but I don't think Asher ever gets respect from anybody.
No.
Precisely because of this.
Absolutely not.
Because he didn't earn anything, right? And then that's what he starts becoming. Eventually things happen to him that causes problems, but yeah, he's a kind of a good dude. I mean, we see him stab a guy in the throat, which is pretty cold-hearted, but it's like at this point he's kind of an okay guy. He's not
bring that up. How many problems in this show, how many personal conflicts in this show could be avoided if people were just a smidge less shitty to each other?
Yeah, this is a toxic masculinity shown in its shown at its fullest, because has mentioned, as we were mentioning, Asher gets the mark for doing this basically assassination job for Badiatus, and as far as Badiatus is concerned, yeah, he's got the marks, whatever. Yeah, he's a gladiator now. But the rest of the boys down in the locker room, they just see this as the manager putting his son in a prime position in the lineup.
It's like someone who doesn't deserve getting an immediate push in WWE.
Yeah, and Asher didn't ask for any of this and didn't realize that this was going to happen. He's got the mark, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm in now." He hasn't realized, he's just royally been set up for failure by Badiatus. Badiatus literally fucks him over here, and so because of this, we'll get into it later on, because I know how he responds to this. This is the birth of also evil plotting Asher here, because of him getting the mark. The other gladiators don't respect him, and thus they create kind of their own worst enemy in this, because so many headaches get formed because of all. This is an important episode because all the bad things start right here.
Yeah, Steve, your thoughts on this episode?
Loved it. This Badiatus once again steals the show, and I think I mentioned last episode that even though I understand that Badiatus is a complete piece of shit, I fucking love him and I fucking root for him. Up to a point, and this episode is a great example of the dichotomy of Steve's feelings towards Badiatus, because he fucks over Vedius. He completely he steals everything that Vedius wanted in this episode. Badiatus fucking schemed and he stole it, and it's fucking great, and I loved it. And then he abuses the shit out of Gannicus and Melita, and I hate him a little bit.
Yeah.
We get behind a smart villain. Yeah, it's the Die Hard thing. It's why do we like Hans Gruber? Because he's a fucking smart villain, and his plan works almost flawlessly. And it's same sort of thing. Badiatus, smart villain. Audience can get behind a smart character.
Badiatus, not only that, but he's so damn charming. and likable. Similar, like I like your example of Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman, charming as fuck in that movie. I mean, you just kind of like him. You're like, okay, he's doing a lot of bad shit, but man, I just like this guy. I'd like to go have a beer with this guy or something. And Body Odyssey the same way. I also believe that we haven't talked a lot about Xena in these 2 episodes, but you start to sort of see, I mean, Xena's really learning how to manipulate things through Gaia. I think it's becoming very clear as we go on that she learns everything that she does in future episodes from her friend Gaia, who's probably the most toxic element that could have been put into
Xena's
any of this
real
house.
Innocent in the
Yes.
first few episodes of this.
Yeah. She's super innocent, and then she just turns and slowly turns evil. And we'll see the moment later on in this series when she fully turns evil. And then you sort of see that power couple, like we were mentioning, the 2 of them together, trying to dominate the Roman world.
Yeah, as I said, everything bad starts here. This is the most important episode of the entire show because every bad element that gets set up, the only missing ingredient for the rest of like all the bad shit is the introduction of Spartacus himself. But that doesn't happen in this. Obviously, it doesn't happen in this prequel show. But that's the last key ingredient for like to finally set off the powder keg that is planted here. Like this is the first time they start using like the gladiators basically for more or less for like sex toys for like, you know, Roman politicians who come into town, like, you know, like you mentioned Lucretia. Like this is when she starts to become this kind of plotting character. Everything starts in this episode.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you sort of see these gladiators, at least in this episode, when Body Odyssey sort of puts them in this position, they have no idea they're going to be put in this position. And you might be thinking like, oh, well, they're slaves. Haven't they done this before? But no, because they've firmly established that at least the Ludus that Body Odyssey is running, there's no fame or anything. Like nobody's coming to his Ludus to partake in the pleasures of that, right? I mean, he's a nobody. Like they don't have any. Their slaves aren't being forced to do any of this stuff. Now, maybe Body Odyssey's father, who we may meet coming up soon, he might have done stuff back in the day when he was running it. But in terms of how the show frames it, Body Odyssey and Xena are just kind of like, you know, very low on the totem pole. And so when their slaves are sort of forced to do this by rich people who are now showing up at their Ludus, it's shocking to them, right? Because you can almost get this sort of sense that Xena really cares for, like Melita, for example. You get the sense that a lot of these people care for each other in some way, shape, or form, but then it's like, but you're still a slave. Right? You still have to do what I want you to do in order to get more power and fame and glory for myself. So, you know, not only are the gladiators wanting to fight for power and glory and women and all of that, but Body Odyssey is doing that as well. And Xena, to a certain extent, they are trying to do what they need to do in order to attain fame, glory within the upper society in ancient Roman circles. So it's fascinating. And this show does such a great job, in my opinion, of sort of balancing that kind of stuff and then just hitting you with like a left hook. You're like, oh no, don't do this. Xena, please say something. Say something. Like, get another slave. And they don't say a word. They just do it. go to town. And it's disturbing, and it's, you know, yeah, it's just great. It's great drama is what it is. It's really great.
Agreed. Do we have anything else to say about this?
I have nothing else.
We are all in agreement. This is a fantastic, if not disturbing, episode.
Yeah, and it gets more and more disturbing. We haven't even talked about that weird little worm tonguing that Gaia's doing to that other slave. Right, like the virgin slaves. Remember, she keeps telling that other slave, "Oh yeah, you want Crixus, don't you?" It's like things get more and more disturbing as we go along in this show.
Yep.
So yeah, stay tuned for that, I suppose. Thanks, everyone. You've made it through episode 2 of a 39-episode series here on Outpost Unknown. Because I looked it up, there are 39 episodes of this show. So we are 2 in. We got 37 more. I don't know how many more weeks that is. But stay tuned next week. Next Thursday, I'm just releasing these on Thursdays. So next Thursday, we will have episode 3 of God's Arena. We're a third of the way through this season already. Isn't that crazy? So there's only 4 more episodes of this, and then we'll get into Spartacus. So thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Jupiter's Croc here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. My name is Matthew. Joining me today is Ronan.
Yep, I'm here.
And the man whose goal today is to give us every detail of every episode that we binge watched to finish off Gods of the Arena in this past weekend is Steve.
Yeah, if I get anything wrong, I blame Ronan for forcing us to have to do this in chunks now. 100% Ronan's fault.
Very true. We were recording once a week. Ronan has a job and responsibilities, which has forced us to have to
adult shit.
Which has forced us to have to watch a whole bunch in a row so that we can get a head start on the number of episodes. So we will do our best over the next few episodes.
You might notice a theme if you watch anything. There's multiple shows with the 3 of us involved, and a consistent theme is assigning blame to someone who is fucked up.
Usually it's not even really warranted. It's just a thing that we do to make ourselves feel better.
I feel like more often than not it's warranted. As in the situation we find ourselves in now.
I feel like you're just kind of wrong. How about that?
Well, I blame Ronan for being wrong.
That's what I thought.
Matt, lead us.
Yes, so we are now on episode 3, Pater Familias. Steve, let's just kick it off. Take us away. What happened in this episode?
This episode goes in a bunch of different directions. So there's going to come a point where I'm going to have to split off into here's what happened with the Romans, and then I'll circle back to what happened with the gladiators, and we'll try to put a pretty bow on it at the end. It opens up with Batiatus presenting Oenomaus and Gannicus to the rest of the gladiators because they've both been promoted in some way or the other. Oenomaus is the new Doctore. Gannicus has been selected to fight in the Primus of these upcoming games, and I assume the Primus is like since everybody's getting into wrestling now, it's like the main event fight, I assume. I don't know that Primus is ever actually like defined within the show, but I interpret it to be the main event. So Oenomaus and Gannicus, or Gannicus is very standoffish towards Oenomaus, and Oenomaus, of course, has no idea what happened at the end of episode 2. He believes that Gannicus dislikes him now because Oenomaus has power over Gannicus when previously they were on equal footing. Little does Oenomaus know he's going to wish that was the case. So
yeah, well, I do like this. I do like this. This sort of dynamic between the two of them, and I think what this show does really, really well is sort of make different characters like there's a lot of unknown knowledge that has taken place, and everybody's hiding their own little secrets, but they're all like on different levels. They all think one thing, but there's really completely different things hiding under the surface that they don't know about. And one of the parts of the drama of the show is this all going to come out? Like, is Oenomaus going to find out that Gannicus slept with Melita? And then what's going to happen with that? So you have this constant tension throughout this whole thing, and we find out that Gannicus and Melita fell in love.
Yes, we're not there yet, but we're getting there. So after this, the Oenomaus and Gannicus and their new roles have been presented. So at this point, I'm going to talk about what happens on the Roman side of things, and I'll circle back to the gladiators in a little bit. But as far as the Romans go, as far as Batiatus knows, his plans have succeeded. He's stolen the Primus and kind of the games as a whole from Vettius and Tullius. And so you know what that means? Time for another orgy with Xena and Gaia. But unluckily for him, his dad Titus walks in. And so the ladies have to quickly cover up, and Titus basically tells Batiatus,
on her boob. He's like literally sucking on her breast as his dad walks in.
I mean, this is probably the most relatable moment in the whole show. Who amongst us hasn't had a coked up, opium laden threesome and then had their dad walk in on them? I mean, it's
Right. Like,
super
we've all
relatable.
been there. We've all been there.
We all know what it feels like. Really embarrassing, awkward. Continue, Steve.
All right. So Titus says, basically, you have turned my Ludus into shit. Like, I leave to retire, and then good Salonius sends me message that you're hatching all these plots and schemes. This is bullshit. This is wrong. I've come back to make it right. And so,
why did he leave in the first
Titus,
place, Steve? That's important. Why did Titus leave the Ludus in the first place?
He's getting old, and the weather in Capua is not kind to him. So you notice as soon as we're going to learn more about this in future episodes, but as soon as he comes back, like he's constantly like coughing and hacking up a lung, and they're ultimately unsuccessful. Badiatus and Xena are trying to say, hey, you know, weather's not being kind to you. Maybe you should go back. And of course, that doesn't happen. But yeah, he is not in the best of health.
If you pay attention to it, the coughing and stuff actually doesn't start until a little bit later on to the episode, which, you know, kind of spoilers for a few more episodes down. It was a thought out thing. They knew they were going to do A with B later on. So it doesn't technically start the minute he gets there. It starts a little bit later on.
There's a specific scene which is foreshadowing, and you might not catch that it's foreshadowing until like a repeat viewing, but we'll get there. His health is the primary reason he left, and Badiatus's first instinct is, let's just show him that we're all capable of running this Ludus, tell him, you know, convince him that things are in good hands, and then he will leave. Spoilers, he does not leave. Titus, using the knowledge that he got from good Salonius, says, hey, we're going to go find Tullius, we're going to go find Vedius, and we're going to make amends. We're going to clean up this shit that Badiatus has got us in. So they leave to go meet with Vedius and Tullius. I don't think Badiatus actually knew that at the time, but he is, you know, not happy when he runs into those two. Meanwhile, Gaia and Xena are out running about, and they're doing their own thing back at the Ludus, and suddenly Varys shows up. Varys, who I still swear is a time-traveling young Bruce Campbell, he shows up with Cosudius, and Cosudius, I don't know what the ancient Roman equivalent of a windowless van is, but this motherfucker drives one. He is like the skeeziest looking. Like, I hope that the Spartacus like makeup and costuming department had to put a shitload of work into him, because if not, and he looks like this all the time, that is fucking unfortunate.
They did a great job
casting creeper.
They did a great job casting the Romans in this, man. They all just look skeezy to me. Just they have that look to them.
Yeah,
you're like, oh god, they're
Matt,
gonna.
Like, if you wanted to, like, you can tell a bad Roman when you see one in this show. Like the first time they were on screen. Matt, you are a director. What would your casting call be like if you needed to cast Cosudius?
High cheekbones, narrow Weasley eyes, and like a pointy chin. that's what I would say.
Yeah, Cosudius is problematic, but Cosudius, through Varys, has heard of the pleasures of House Badiatus, and Xena and Gaia thought offering up their slaves and gladiators for sex shows was going to be a one-time thing to gain the favor of Varys, but nope. Varys has started telling other powerful, influential Romans about this, and so it's going to be a thing for the rest of Gods of the Arena. So Xena is, trying to protect Melita. So she's like, okay, well, you can't use the girl from last time, but I will offer you any one of my virgin slaves that I have back here. And the two virgin slaves are Navia, who's going to become a bigger player in the show in the next couple seasons, and then Diona. And if you've watched the rest of the series, you might notice that Diona isn't in the rest of the series. So,
that tells you everything you need to know.
Cosudius picks yeah, Casudius picks Diona for reasons that I am not actually going to explain on this series. Go watch the show. And so Casudius gives Diona to is it Rascos or it looks like maybe it was Rascos, but he
I
gives her
think it was
to
him.
a
Yeah.
gladiator. This disgusting dirt and shit covered gladiator, like fresh in from his training, has not had a bath or anything yet, and so he makes this dirty, filthy gladiator have sex with Diona, who again is a virgin. And as the sex is happening, Custodius is like, I picked this shit covered gladiator on purpose to show you just how fucking terrible the world could be. Like he's just piling on and piling on and piling on, and I want to move away from this scene. Diona does not have a good time. She does not have a good time for the rest of this series.
Well, the important thing to note about this is for the previous couple episodes, they have set up Diona, right? But she's really looking forward to having sex the first time. Even what's her face? Xena's friend. She's just like Gaia, yeah. She's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great. It's so pleasurable. It's so amazing. Like, she's getting her all hyped up for this. And then this is what happens, and you're like, oh god.
Yep.
Depraved Romans.
It is.
She also gets her hyped
rough.
up for it in the most problematic of creepy ways possible. Like the whole time she's talking to her, you kind of get the sense that like that this character was intended to be cast and played as like a 15-year-old child in the shower, sort of.
Oh god, we're back to that again. Damn it!
You can't get away from it. But that is sort of the vibe that you get. They weren't going to actually cast a kid, but these were probably supposed to be kids.
Oh yeah, in ancient Rome, age didn't matter, so that was a thing that went on in ancient Rome quite frequently. So yeah, you're 100% right, but they're not going to make it a 15-year-old.
Yes.
No,
thank you for taking some liberties with the story, creators of Spartacus Gods of the Arena.
Thank you for not being Velma.
Anyways, moving on from that scene, Diona has just been given to a gladiator for the pleasure of Casudius. So Varus and Casudius, I didn't mention previously, Varus is like, hey, kind of hinted to Xena, hey, if you withdraw the pleasures of House Badiatus now, I might have to rescind my offer of having Gannicus in the game. So Xena is basically being blackmailed into complying with this. Anyways, so that's over. So let's go back to Badiatus and Titus and Tullius and Vedius. And Titus has come back to... Titus and Badiatus are completely different, and it's relevant now, but you'll see this more throughout the rest of the series. Titus, for lack of a better term, he knows his place. Like, he is a Lanista. That's all he ever wanted to be. That's all he ever wanted Badiatus to be. He understands that his hierarchy, his place in the Roman hierarchy, is not high. He's got to do like some bootlicking with the higher powered and richer Roman folks, and he's happy to do that because, again, he's fine just being a Lanista, whereas Badiatus always had his heights set higher. And so Titus comes back to set things right, to repair the relationship with Vedius and Tullius, and as the result of their meeting is Gannicus will no longer be in the Primus whatsoever. But as just kind of like an olive branch to House Badiatus, some of Badiatus's like lesser men will fight like early on in the games, and Titus is like, hey, Badiatus is not happy about this, and he runs into Salonius and starts shitting on Salonius because good Salonius starts shitting on good Salonius because good Salonius kind of outed everything that happened to Titus. Anyway, so
trying to help Badiatus.
Yes, at this point,
like,
good Salonius is still trying to help.
No.
He's not an asshole yet.
Yeah, it's important to note, snitches always get stitches. And he went and snitched, so later on there will be stitches.
Yeah, stitches do not occur anytime soon, though. So the friendship between Badiatus and good Salonius is starting to fray, like already just like 3 episodes into the show. Badiatus is not happy with the deal that his dad has made, but there's nothing he can do about it because now that Titus is back, Titus is in charge. So Gannicus out of the Primus. 4 other lesser gladiators will fight early on in the day. So that's what's going on with the Romans at this point. Let's back up to the gladiators. It is very clear already that Gannicus is having some strong feelings towards Melita. He can't get Melita out of his head. He's like constantly like staring at her and approaching her, and it's getting in the way of everything else he has to do. The gladiators are in training. They find out that, hey, plans have changed. Others of you are going to fight now, and so the gladiators got to train. And Crixus is being paired with Barca. Barca uses a spear. Crixus has never fought anyone with a spear, so he gets his ass kicked by Barca, and Crixus gives him like a talking to. Like it starts kind of mentoring Crixus to an extent.
Like, Gannicus gives him a talking to.
Who did I say? I meant Gannicus.
Yeah, you said Crixus spoke to Crixus.
Okay, well, I was interpreting his internal dialogue, but no, yes, Gannicus starts mentoring Crixus, for lack of a better term. Meanwhile, people continue to treat Asher and Dagon like shit. Barca is going to be kind of a bigger player in season 1. He doesn't really do a whole lot in Gods of the Arena. And his partner is Octus, and Octus does even less than Barca in this prequel series. But they are Barca and Octus, like their only like character trait in this prequel series is they fuck with the new recruits. They keep pissing in the food of Asher and Dagon and Crixus and whoever the other guy was that I think died last episode. So this is like the only time like Asher really gets one up on someone and kind of like wins the argument in the series. Octus and Barca keep pet pigeons, and because Asher and Dagon keep getting their food pissed in, they go and eat the fucking pigeons.
That is awesome.
That is so awesome. But that triggers like a big fight. The gladiators are like rioting. Doctore comes out to try to stop them, and no one's listening. And then Titus says, hey, knock it off. And so it sets up that at the moment, Onomaeus as Doctore has no fucking respect whatsoever among the gladiators.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot when I was a supervisor for a brief period of time of people who were on my own units. Like, you don't have any respect for the person. Like, you just view them as another colleague, right? You don't view them as someone who can tell you what to do. And that's one of the things that Onomaeus is worried that Gannicus is feeling. Like, he's got to be able to tell these guys what to do. He's going to have to whip his friends. He's going to have to, potentially kill some of these people who are getting out of line, but none of them see him that way.
Yep. So I think so we've set up the Romans, we've set up the gladiators. Let's start tying this back together. It's time for the actual games. And so Barca, Octus, Gnaeus, and Crixus are chosen for the games, and they're going to fight each other. So it's the House of Batiatus versus the House of Batiatus. And Gnaeus is a character who is in season 1, but I had completely fucking forgot about him. I had to look up who this was, and I was like, oh, it's that piece of shit. Which is probably that train of thought's probably going to happen frequently throughout the rest of the series. Barca is a spear user. Gnaeus just has the typical sword and shield, and Barca destroys him. Like he had no chance. Gnaeus sucks with the sword and shield, which will become relevant in the future. Then Crixus fights Octus, and this becomes like kind of a battle between Titus and Batiatus, because Octus was trained when the Ludus was being run by Titus, and Titus considers Octus to be like one of his best men. And then Crixus was purchased by Batiatus, and even though he doesn't have the mark of the Brotherhood yet, he's shown a lot of promise. And so this is a battle to see who is right, who is the best gladiator, who is the best trained gladiator among someone trained by Titus and someone trained under Batiatus. Crixus fights Octus, and using the mentoring of Gannicus, who told him, hey, take the spear away and the guy can't fight, which that doesn't sound like world-shattering advice. Like, hey, if you take a weapon away from someone, they're less dangerous to you. But Crixus is like, holy shit, I didn't know it was possible for someone to drop a spear once they picked it up. Crixus ends up winning the fight and killing Octus. And there's this moment where Octus and Barca like share this like final loving glance as Octus is dying. Even when Octus is being stabbed through the chest with Crixus or by Crixus, Octus like in his dying moments like shows respect and tells Crixus, Barca has trained you well. Batiatus has won the bet. Batiatus's gladiator beat Titus's gladiator, which was really surprising to Titus because Titus considered Octus like one of the best within the Ludus. Um, so at this point, that's the end of Batiatus's men in the games. So we go back to the Ludus, and Batiatus thinks like he's won. All right, I've shown my father that that I know what I'm doing here. So he's going to go back. He's going to leave because I've proven myself. And then Titus says, "Oh no, like I forgot how much I missed this. I'm going to stick around." Batiatus is very unhappy with this, and that's where I believe the show ends.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, what I like about this episode is this is the first episode where obviously Crixus is my favorite character. So this is the first episode where you really start to see him turning into the classic Crixus personality type, where he kind of realizes I'm actually good at this and I can do this. He's making that transition,
Yes.
which is really really cool. The other thing that I'll mention is the title's Pater Familias, which is related to Titus, because in ancient Roman society like this, the fathers had control of everything. So Batiatus, you just sort of find out he's been running things while his dad's been gone, but he doesn't actually have any power to do anything. Unless Titus dies, then he would be the next. He would be the son that takes over everything, and you sort of get the idea here also that that Titus really does not like Lucretia, aka
Oh
Xena.
no.
Does not like her at all. Really feels that Batiatus married beneath his sort of station. We don't get a whole lot yet as to why Titus sort of maybe doesn't like Lucretia all that much until some later episodes here. But this really starts here as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Speaking of Lucretia slash Xena, just in case anyone's confused who we're talking about, uh, Ronan mentioned earlier about how Titus's cough doesn't start until till later on. There is a scene where Xena offers Titus Mulson, honeyed wine. I don't know the official name of it, but honeyed wine.
That's what they keep
Uh,
calling it. So
he
yeah.
gets Titus gets offered this honeyed wine over and over and over and over, etc. Again, uh, and then Badias is like, "Oh, I'll have some too," and Xena's like, "No, no, no, you it doesn't treat you right this time of day. How about you not touch the honeyed wine?" And while Badiatus at this point has no idea what's going on, we learn later on that Xena has been we'll say trying to not kill Titus, but trying to make his health issues worse in order to force him to leave.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like it shows that the writers of this show had this sort of all planned out, right? Because if you weren't exactly sure where this was going, like sometimes when you start a show like this, you start writing, you write the pilot episode, and as you're writing, things may change and shift. But they knew what they were doing from the beginning. Like, okay, this is how it's going to end. Since we know this is where what Lucretia is going to do, sort of ends. Let's add some little things throughout these other episodes that will become obvious. So upon a rewatch, like, oh God, I missed it. Right? I love that kind of storytelling when, unlike Star Wars, you have a plan. You know where you're going, and so you can add that kind of stuff in there. Very very cool. I will say that this episode is probably, for all the wrong reasons, is the one that stands out most in my mind from Gods of the Arena before this sort of rewatch here, just because that Diona scene. That Diona scene is so fucked up in so many ways that it just sort of is like seared into my memory, almost to the point where it's kind of like I can't believe they went this far with it, because I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you guys felt watching that, but it's very disturbing. It's
It's
very,
rough.
very creepy.
It's very rough to get through.
Yeah. And there's like close-ups of, her just crying. She's just like, I mean, and you're just imagining what could it's two dudes doing the things that you would expect them to be doing to this poor girl, and it's memorable in all the wrong ways. But again, one of the things about this show is they're not afraid to sort of go there. They're not afraid to show the most heinous acts and really make the villains villainy, which I enjoy. Like you got to see the villains do something really, really bad to really want them like their comeuppance. As we'll see with Batiatus, you mentioned on a previous episode how we still love Batiatus. We know what he's going to end up doing, and we know all this underlying stuff. But just like God, I can't help but love him. But the Romans, fuck all of them. I don't think there's a single Roman in the show that is portrayed positively.
I would give a slight argument to that. I think Titus is pretty much the only Roman that you could view in a relatively positive light. He's not like cruel. He's not a cruel asshole to the slaves, like the servants in the house. He greets them like with warm respect and smiles. Now, bear in mind, if push came to shove, like as is shown in the later episode, if one of them does get hurt and has to be tossed aside, he's like, oh well, that's unfortunate. So, while he's nice to them, he still doesn't really view most of them as people, with the exception of perhaps some of the gladiators.
Well, he's going to send all the gladiators to the mines that don't perform well enough.
It feels very weird watching the show, and it feels very weird to say this, but like, I guess like Titus treats the slaves as well as you could expect one to be treated. Like when Titus returns in this episode, like all of the gladiators and slaves that were there like under his like rule of the ludus, like they happily greet him. They're like excited to see him and have him back. I mean, is it brainwashing, or is this just the way things worked? I don't know, but it's very strange. Like there are certain characters in the show, like even Crixus is like, I don't give a fuck about freedom. Like this is what I want to do. Like some of the slaves almost seem happy to be in this situation as long as their dominus is not a dickbag.
Yeah, it's like he is the best case scenario that you could get given the circumstances. If you were a slave, like that's the guy you would at the very least want to say, "I'll buy him for like 5 nickels or whatever currency they use." It's like just because at the very least, he's not gonna offer your ass up to the other Romans. He's got that going for him at the very least. As far as within like this particular the prequel show, he's probably the only decent Roman that I can think of.
Yeah, and he's like playing by the rules of Roman society. Like you can argue, you could easily argue that everything Titus was trying to do is correct. Like, he knew his place. He knew where Lenistas stand in the hierarchy. He was trying to put things right according to the way the world worked at this time in that part of the world.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting is this idea of how we in our mind view slavery, right? Because obviously slavery is horrible. It's absolutely awful. But how it's portrayed in this show, specifically with the gladiators, because Diona's sort of like one of those characters that's portrayed like, I want to get out of here. I don't know how to get out of here. And Navia eventually, spoiler, does try to help her escape. But the gladiators themselves, like as long as you're doing well as a gladiator, you can't come and go as you please. You're stuck there in the ludus, but they get all the women they want. They get all the wine they want. They get all of this sort of like creature comforts, so to speak. And their goal is like glory. They just want fame and glory. They're kind of like, rock stars that are under house arrest. That's kind of like how it's portrayed.
They were the football players of their day. I've seen some historical stuff on, and it varies because I've seen some stuff, especially like that says like gladiators, like the good ones, they actually were given the freedom to leave the ludus and come back, and because they were worth so much money to the dominus, like to the Lanista, so they were given freedoms like the ability to take a wife and stuff. But I've also read some other stuff that's like, oh no, they couldn't. So I'm not even sure if the jury's completely out on that.
I think it
and
depends
just
on how good of a gladiator you were. Like, right?
Yeah,
So, like, Michael Jordan has different rules that he plays by than, some scrub on the bench,
Yeah,
right? You
you
can get
get
some
you
leeway.
get you get
But let
busted for gambling. You go play baseball for a couple
Yeah,
years.
Dennis Rodman in the playoffs. He can go to Las Vegas for a weekend where other players can't sort of do that stuff. I do know historically that they used to use gladiator sweat as like an aphrodisiac for like Roman women and stuff. Like these were the
It did
very
not work for Diona.
oh, no,
God.
it did not. But my main point that I want to get to is this idea of slavery and how when we get to Blood and Sand, it's Spartacus that basically has to convince all of these dudes, look, you guys are idiots. Like freedom is the way that you're not free here. Look at all this other stuff we could be doing, but we are stuck getting whipped, getting beaten, our food pissed in, when we don't do well, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that really sets up the Spartacus character later on for being way more unique than all the other
Yeah,
gladiators,
many of the
especially when it comes to
slaves.
Crixus.
Yep, many of the gladiators are perfectly content, it seems, saying, "This is the best that my life is going to get. I'm gonna preserve this. I'm gonna try
Yep.
to be the best gladiator I can be, because this is all I know." Like it's weird to see these slaves happy in their situation, but that
Yeah.
is something that the prequel series and the first season of Spartacus present to us over and over and over again.
Well, they have the ability is there for them, like presumably, like they can earn enough to buy freedom, and like Roman slavery was different from like let's say like American slavery was, whereas like slaves in like America, there was no getting out. Like you couldn't just save up enough like money to buy your freedom back, whereas the Romans you could, like a gladiator could earn up enough money to pay off like his owner to leave. Like, a
And like
servant could pay.
indentured servitude sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. A servant could pay enough to leave. And Roman society was also kind of like cool with that. We're like, oh, well, you used to be a slave, but you clawed your way out of it. And now you've made something out of your life. Which is not like to say that they were still good people. It's just slavery was like like slavery was different in Roman era as it was in, various other places in the
let's
world.
let's argue over what society had the most meritorious slavery system.
But it's also interesting, Ronan, that you sort of bring that up in terms of like the mentality of sort of slavery in that time. A lot of these gladiators at this ludus, they don't even question the fact that they are a slave. Like there's multiple points when Batiatus is like, "You're just a slave, dude." Like what he told Boba Fett like last episode. He's like, "You're just a slave," and they just sort of accept that. They just realize, "Yep, my station in this life is way lower than yours." Any one of these gladiators, when they're one on one with Batiatus, could immediately kill him. Just immediately murder him. There's a couple guards around, but it's like, come on, these are badass gladiators who are trained to fight every single day. They could immediately run roughshod over this entire ludus, which we see that Spartacus convinces them to do. But just the mentality that a lot of these gladiators have of, okay, yep, I'll just take it. I'll just do whatever I'm told to do because that's just my lot in life. That's what makes this character Spartacus so great. I think going forward is he's the one. He was a free man who became a slave, and so he sort of like realizes, no, this is not the way we're going to go here. And it takes quite a while. It takes a whole season to change that mentality. And to your point, Steve, it's not just slaves that do this. One of your favorite characters coming up was a free man who chose to do this to earn
Yep.
money. So it's not just slaves that become gladiators.
Which is going to be like, weird when we get to that season, because it's like he sold himself into the situation to earn money and then allows himself to be killed, which seems counterintuitive. But we'll get there in like 8 to 9 episodes of this.
So what did you guys think overall of this episode? I think we said episode 2 was the first great episode chronologically of Spartacus. How did you guys feel about Pater Familias?
I don't know how to rate it. 'Cause, like I think basically, aside from some early season 1 episodes, they all seem to range from good to great. I don't think this was as good as episode 2, but it's still pretty fucking good.
Ronan?
Yep, yeah. Like this is like because Titus was one of my favorite characters, and this is the introduction of him. Like so, like as we mentioned, he's a different he's a different form of Roman, so that sets him apart, makes him different, makes the episodes more interesting, and it also gives Badiatus a foil because up until this point, by episode 2, he had more or less won, and so you have to do something to re-up
Maybe
the
Titus
stake.
is the true villain of the series.
Well, you
Maybe,
also
or
get. We also talked about how much we love Batiatus and all this, but it's because we feel bad for him, right? Like all this bad stuff happens to him. We feel bad for this horrible, evil character, and then his dad comes in, who's ostensibly the quote unquote good character representation of slavery aside. He's the he's the good character, and we're just like, man, I want Batiatus to get over on this dude somehow. Like I hate Titus. The show makes me hate Titus because he's not allowing Batiatus to flourish, who's a bad guy who I want to flourish. It's good writing. It really is.
I mean, I would disagree with that only because I have the benefit of knowing where Batiatus becomes, and what Titus was trying to do was stop that. It's like maybe deep down inside he knew, he has a line. I think it's in this episode, or maybe it's in another one where he's in the games and they're watching the gladiators fight, and he's just sort of chatting with Batiatus. And Batiatus makes the comment about how, well, we should be watching it up there with them, and he's like, well, you breached, you went beyond your station and you fucked around. More or less what he's telling him is this is when you fuck around with people higher than you, bad shit happens, which almost
fucked around and found out.
Yeah, which does kind of make me that put into my mind when I was watching it today. I was like yesterday, I was like, I wonder if maybe there's a prequel version of him who made an attempt at what Batiatus did, maybe did some scheming. It went badly, and it taught him, he learned the lesson of don't ever plan against the high class. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just be happy.
That is a good point. Did Batiatus at the end of episode season 2 or at the end of episode 2 and the beginning of this current episode, he thought he had won. Did he really not expect any comeuppance from Tullius or Vedius? They might not be able to prove that Batiatus was behind this scheme. Do you think they fucking care about whether or not they had proof of that? Batiatus maybe wasn't the forward thinker that we were building him up to be in his schemes. Because he seems to think, I won, it's over.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's this episode, because I binge watched all 4 of these in a row. But there's at some point, we learn that Batiatus didn't even want to run a ludus. That wasn't even his goal in life. That wasn't what he wanted. Because his dad, Titus, even says, I know you wanted other things. You did not want this to be your life. Because Batiatus, this whole thing, he wants to elevate in society. He is sick and tired and not satisfied with being a simple ludus, right? He wants the fame, the glory. He wants to be accepted by Roman society and not the elites of that society, which is why he goes through so many machinations to try to please these people, right? To try to please these awful, horrible people. And again, we come to find out later on, I won't spoil it, kind of where Lucretia came from a little bit. And I think that they want more than what lot they have in life. But because he has this ludus, he feels this is the only way that he can make it to that upper echelon of Roman society. He's got to use this ludus and the gladiators and the fame and glory that comes along with it to ingratiate himself with upper Roman society.
Yep.
That's how I saw it anyway.
Let's wrap this up, because this is getting long. I think we're all pretty happy with this episode. Maybe not as good as episode 2, but still another damn good episode of Gods of the Arena.
Agreed.
Yep.
So now, stay tuned next week, folks, as we get to episode 4, which is titled Beneath the Mask. And the next couple episodes coming up, we're getting in the real shit now. the real shit. So stay tuned for that, and we will see you then. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Jupiter's Croc. My name is Matthew. Joining me today in Memphis, hopefully safe and sound, is Ronan.
Yeah, everything was really nice and pretty calm. Yeah.
Good.
Like for
Good.
Memphis,
Well,
it's
we're
very-
not going any further than that.
Oh.
And and Steve, also known as Spartacus.
Yep, I am here.
So last week, guys, we left off with Titus showing up, deciding he's going to stay at the Ludus. I think. No, wait, that's this episode. Wait, was it? I'm confused. Steve, take it away.
The end of last episode is Badiatus expecting Titus to leave, and Titus informs him that no, I remembered how much I enjoyed this. I'm sticking around. So you were correct.
And then we get that evil look on Badiatus' face when he turns towards the camera, and those eyes. He's just like, we think, okay, Badiatus is going to do something here. That's where that last shot setup is. But Beneath the Mask, episode 4, take it away.
So we open. I don't know what the time skip is between the end of episode 3 and the beginning of episode 4 here, but the start of this episode ends with different games, an indeterminate amount of time later. Asher and Dagon are about to have their first match, and Onomaus tells them, look, you've got the mark of the Brotherhood, but we all know that you didn't go through the actual official test. So consider this your test. Like, if you win, we'll welcome you as brothers. If not, well, hey, we were right about you. You both kind of suck. And of course, Asher is translating for Dagon and maybe embellishing a little bit of what Onomaus is saying to them, and what Asher. Dagon is saying back. This is, man. Asher is a piece of dog shit, and this episode really drives that home. But anyways, they go out and they fight, and Asher just immediately gets his ass kicked. Dagon kills the person that it's a 2-on-2 match, and Dagon, a tornado tag. Dagon kills his opponent, and then has to go and rescue Asher. And Asher, even though he did nothing, and Dagon essentially won a 2-on-1 fight, Asher stands up and starts gloating, like, yeah, I'm a fucking badass. I'm Asher. These are just the first men to fall by the blade of Asher. Beefcake. And so they win. So presumably, according to Onomaus, they're going to be welcomed as gladiators, and we're going to see that really only applies to one of them. And while this is happening, I think Ronan mentioned this last episode, Badiatus and Titus are down like with the people watching the event, and this is where Badiatus says we should be up there in the Pulvinus where the important people are, and Titus says no, like, this is where I want to be. Like, I like being among the people. I am a Lanista. This is where I belong.
And we find out later on that the people of Capua love Titus.
Yes,
they love him.
Well-revered person among Capua. But this is where we see the conversation, the beginning of Titus saying, "I'm happy being a Lanista. I wanted you to be happy being a Lanista, but clearly you didn't want this life. You wanted to be more." And things didn't work out that way. But Badiatus, tries to counter and talk about, you made me a Lanista. I'm doing my best here, and then you came back here to kind of fuck it up. Like they started to bond a little bit, and then they ended the conversation like at odds as they always are. Anyways, guess who's up to her normal schemes? Gaia and Xena are out and about on town, and and Gaia again at this point, even though like she is this like incredibly beautiful woman, and like she's well known around Rome for being this flamboyant woman, she's broke. She's still essentially couch surfing at Badiatus' Ludus, and so she sees like a well-off Roman man named Petronius, I believe, and she's gonna go like try to charm Petronius to get him to wife her up so that she can have access to another powerful Roman man's bank account. So she goes and starts chatting up Petronius, but as soon as she mentions Lucretia, Xena, Petronius stops the conversation. Is like, hey, you're Xena, right?
Erect.
I've heard about the pleasures of House Badiatus and Xena. You can see the look on her face. She's like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to do this again. Uh,
Well, the audience is like, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna have to see some of this again."
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to
That's
be some
that's very
Diona level
accurate.
shit.
We as the audience know this is going to go very, very badly.
Yep. So we'll come back to this in a little bit, but long story short, Petronius wants to have his own pleasure night at the House of Batiatus. Meanwhile, Asher and Dagon get back to the Ludus where they're victorious, and like the other gladiators are like they're just doing this like half-assed like golf clap. Like they do not care that these two people with the fake mark of the Brotherhood have won a fight.
Now, I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
I can understand Asher, like the other gladiators, not really coming around to Asher because he's just a weasel. He's an asshole. They can see when he's trying to like cheat and take advantage of, like, not be professional about various things. But why did they act that way towards Dagon? Because I felt like after him killing two people in the arena, like and Anameus saying this is your test, that he would have been more sort of like welcomed by
I
the
agree.
other.
I 100% agree, and I think to some extent people do start to warm up to him a little bit, but I think because of the language barrier, they have to continue to kind of see Asher and Dagon as a package deal. I also just don't know like how many of the gladiators actually know the story of what happened other than just these two won. Like I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. It's like I was about to say
How
that
well
they
does word
literally
travel?
just got back. Yeah, they literally
And
just
maybe
got back.
Asher's just like, hey, I did it all, or
Yeah,
something.
could be. Yeah,
And that's the thing. Like, it's Anameus, right? Who says, look, hey Asher, if you couldn't speak the language, you'd be in the mines right now. Like, they establish that Asher's only there to translate for Dagon.
yeah, 100%. Speaking of Asher translating things, Anameus is going around like paying people because, as we mentioned last episode, like you actually make money by being a gladiator, and you can if you save it up, you can buy your freedom after a while. But of course, most of the gladiators don't save it up; they spend it on women. But
Wine and whores, Steve.
Yes.
Wine and whores.
Anameus is handing out coins and gives Asher half of what Dagon gets. And Dagon is like, oh, I'm going to get so many. He doesn't use the word women, but I'm going to translate. He's going to get so many women with this coin. And Asher pretends that what he said is, hey, this isn't fair. We were both, in the arena. And Anameus is like, Dagon gets twice the coin because he's twice the man. And that's where I think Anameus says, if you couldn't translate, you wouldn't be here. Yeah. So I think
because
Dagon...
Anameus saw it. He saw Asher, he lost his match, essentially.
Yeah, I think at this point, Dagon, whatever his name is, like, is kind of... Dagon. He's rising. He's being seen in a better light, but he's still joined at the hip to Asher, which is holding him down.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a scene or something of the other gladiators sort of welcoming him more to really show that divide between him and Asher.
Agreed.
That you get a little tidbit of that later on in this episode, like where you can sort of see the gladiators, they do recognize, okay, yeah, I know we gave him some shit, but this guy, yeah, he's one of us, because what happens at the that happens at the party, but there is a moment where the gladiators turn and they stare down Asher.
Yeah, so after Anameus makes the rounds and pays the gladiators, there's a brief scene because Gannicus is just being an asshat at this point. Like, he doesn't want to train, he doesn't want to listen to anyone. Like, all he can think about is Melita, and Titus does not think Gannicus is nearly as good as Batiatus says, so he calls Gannicus up. They have a talk, and Gannicus reiterates, I fight for the honor of House Batiatus. Batiatus is like, yeah, see, told you. And Titus is like, no, I see right through this bullshit. He's just telling us what he wants to hear. Gnaeus, again, a guy who he lost a fight to Barca last episode. He completely sucks with a sword and shield, which is kind of like the default gladiator style. They're going to train him. I cannot get the names of these fighting styles correct, but basically he's going to get a net and a net and a trident. So he's got to like throw a net on people.
It's like
to, like,
Murmillo, or I think, or something.
Murmillo
like
is the
Murmillo.
heavyweight. Murmillo
like-
is what like Gannicus and Spartacus are. Those are Murmillos.
It's like Rotarius, something
Okay,
like that.
I'll look that up while
All
you're talking.
I'm just going to call it net and trident to make it simple. They tell Aeneas, hey, you suck with a sword and shield. We're going to give you a net and a trident to fight with.
Retiarius. Yep.
Retiarius, thank you. Aeneas does not want it. He's like, fuck this noise. This is stupid. And then Oenomaus, for the first time as Doctore, asserts his dominance and whips Aeneas. And Aeneas is like, all right, I guess I'm using a net and trident now, and goes off.
That's just the proper response to taking a whip.
He's like, oh shit.
It fucking hurts.
So we're gonna see how Aeneas's story plans out over the next couple episodes. Meanwhile, it's time to address another pleasure night at the house of Badiatus.
3 in a row, baby. We're 3 in a row.
So Xena and Gaia tell Badiatus, hey, another rich Roman fuck wants to come and have fun with our slaves and gladiators, and we have to do this in order to, we lost our standing in the previous games where Gannicus was supposed to be. Petronius, like, he can get us into the actual arena, the new arena being built. So we've got to do it. But of course, Titus has no idea that either of the two previous pleasure nights have happened. And so Badius is like, well, my dad's not going to allow this. My dad wants to play by the rules. So I've got to get my dad out of town. And so he hatches the scheme for Badiatus and his dad to go out of town to look at potential new slaves to recruit as gladiators. So it's left to Gaia and Xena and Salonius to pull off a
good
pleasure night part 3.
Come on, Steve, you're failing. A good Salonius.
He's starting the beginning of no longer being good Salonius. But so it's not just enough for Petronius to have a pleasure night. He wants to involve all of his friends, and so it is.
Come on, homies, they're coming over.
Yeah, he invites like all of his Roman buddies, Xena and Gaia, and moderately good Salonius. They bring out all of the slaves and all the gladiators. Xena,
good Salonius doesn't even want to be there. They basically bring good Salonius there. 'Cause, again, he's still good at this point, I think. He's not bad. He's not bad until... or he doesn't sort of turn until Badiatus gets in his face about some stuff that we'll discuss. But at this point,
he's been building the whole show.
He's like the DD, right? Like the designated driver guy, where he's just like, okay, because they establish he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't drink, he doesn't have sex, he doesn't do any of that. He's just kind of like this very like neutral milquetoast like friend. He's just a friend to observe. And at a certain point, when we talk about what happens, he was like, oh my god, if I'd only just stayed a little bit longer, I could have helped you guys. But he's just there to kind of like be a if any shit starts
there
going
to be
bad,
a male presence, because Xena and Gaia both say to Badiatus is like, if these rich Roman people get out of control, we're women, they're not going to listen to us. And Badiatus is like, oh, invite good Salonius over, man of respect and danger, he will get everyone in line.
Man, everyone, all the higher ups, everyone is like, oh, he has no spine. This guy's a pussy. Fuck him.
Well, he's a Roman, right? Basically, I mean, he's a Roman citizen, I should say, because these people aren't from Rome necessarily. A good Salonius and Batiatus, but they're Roman citizens. So if you have another Roman male citizen there, there's a level of protection there, because another Roman male citizen who's going wild and crazy is maybe going to do that less so if there's another like non-fucked up Roman male there that can sort of witness what's happening. So it's a layer of protection for Xena and Gaia.
We need Rachel here right now.
No, we don't. Let's not involve Rachel with this.
Wonder if she's seen this show.
She has. You, myself, and Rachel on a website that shall not be named, in a previous podcast that shall not be named, talked about Spartacus.
Did she see Gods of the Arena though?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask her.
I don't know. Anyways, this is the first pleasure night where it's like all hands on deck. Like previously, it was like 3 people in a room. So like the creepy Roman and then the gladiator and the slave. everyone is out for this, and so Xena has to start swearing people to secrecy. Like because Xena's worried about Onomaus, because Onomaus, we talked about last time, there seem to be a lot of slaves and gladiators that actually like enjoy their life to some extent. Xena knows that Onomaus is going to tell Titus about this, and so
because they're friends.
yes,
They're really good friends.
yes. Xena blackmails Melita and says, "Hey, you need to keep Onomaus in line here, because if you don't, I will tell him about you and Gannicus." Speaking of which, Melita and Gannicus continue. They continue to trade glances. I think I think is it the beginning. I don't know. Gannicus finds excuses to run into her, and he keeps making things awkward between the two of them. But that's going to pay off more in the next couple episodes. Just know
we should also
that
point
is an
out
ongoing thing. Go ahead.
we should also point out one thing about Gannicus, and you touched on this, I think, on the last episode. He starts by not losing battles, but even in training fights, he's so distracted by Melita that people like Crixus and I think Barca at one point does something to him or something. Like he's not in fighting shape, so to speak. He's got it as a super amazing gladiator. You got to be completely focused so you don't get murdered in the arena. But his mind is elsewhere, shall we say?
Yep. All right,
I
so
think we overlooked that. There was like a practice fight in the last episode, and we just where Crixus and Gannicus fought each other, and we just completely overlooked that.
Yeah, because Crixus is sort of gauging his talents against Gannicus, right? Yes. And so Crixus by this point really feels like he can beat Gannicus one-on-one now.
He can't, but he thinks that.
He thinks that. that.
All right, so before we get back to Pleasure Night, let's finish off the Badiatus and Titus plotline. They go to look at potential new gladiator recruits, and the recruits are shitty. And Titus calls Badiatus out on this. He's like, "Hey, look, I am not a fool. Like, I know that you knew that all of these potential gladiators were shit. So like, I know that you have ulterior motives to bring me here." And Badiatus thinks he's caught, because Badiatus thinks, "Oh shit, my dad knows that I wanted to get him away from my house tonight for some reason." Then Badiatus is kind of saved because Titus thinks, "Oh, you just wanted to have some father-son time because our relationship is so fraught." And Badiatus is like, yep, that must be it." so
thanks, Dad.
Yeah, so Titus kind of calls Badiatus out, and he's like, I appreciate the gesture because I know we've been at odds. Let's start rebuilding our relationship, but let's do it at home. Like, there's no reason for us to be here. Let's just go home. We can sleep in our own bed. And Badiatus is unable to find an excuse to convince his dad to stay away from the Ludus for the night. So just know that while the night of pleasure is happening, Badiatus and Dad are on their way home.
Well, the thing I love most about this show, honestly, is that all of the drama, like great drama, comes from setting up things that you feel as a viewer, how the hell are they going to get out of this situation? Where it's like, it's a lose-lose situation with all the gladiators, with Xena, with Badiatus and his dad. It's like, there's no possible way these characters can get out of this, but I know they do, at least some of them. How is it going to happen? And this is another one I'm sitting here like, how the fuck are they going to try to get out of this one?
Yeah, and
spoilers.
To an extent, he doesn't.
Yes.
All right, so back to the Night of Pleasure. So there's a lot of shit going on, so I'm gonna summarize as best I can. There's like 100 Romans there. All of the gladiators have been brought up to the floor. All of the female slaves have been like painted and are wearing next to nothing. They're all there except for Navia.
A lot of naked dudes running around.
Yeah, there's a lot of naked everything.
This show is not just naked women. There's a lot of fully naked dudes wandering around.
Yeah, suck it. Don't fuck in the woods. Whatever you like seeing, you will see that part in Gods of the Arena. But
even Crixus is fully nude running around in this show.
So all right, so the big things that happen. There's like hundreds of people, both gladiators, Roman slaves, etc. Diona once again is being forced to fuck a gladiator in front of now in front of a giant crowd. Like she's just like on display. Um, the Romans have like their pick of whoever they want to have fun with, and one Roman goes up to Dagon, and this guy is like, "Hey, Dagon, I want to fuck you," but he's not like he asks him, not that it makes it any better, but he doesn't just grab Dagon's hand and take him to the room. He asks him,
Ask
and
him nicely.
Where does your pleasure lie?
Yep. And then so Asher says, "Oh, sorry, he doesn't understand you," and so he translates, and Dagon has no idea what's going on. But Asher tells the Roman that, "Oh yeah, Dagon would love to be fucked with you, and please don't be gentle. He likes it rough." Completely
large beasts like him.
Completely fucks over his friend. So Asher basically serves up Dagon to this Roman guy, and Dagon, this is the end of the friendship between Dagon and Asher.
Well, that was the moment I was talking about with the gladiators that are next to him. They turn and they shoot Asher the glare because they realize you just sold him up. You didn't do anything to try and help him out. There's no fuck you.
But for all they know, Asher was translating correctly. Maybe Dagon was into it. Of course, that's not the case. Anyways, yeah, this is the start of the end of the friendship between Asher and Dagon. What else happens?
I would never do this to you guys if I was in this situation. Just letting you know. I would never do that to either one of you.
True friendship right there.
Well, maybe Ronan, depending on the day.
Yeah. True friendship. I would never sell your literal ass to a Roman for just a good time. I would never do that.
Anyways, Tullius shows up.
Continuing to make Steve very
uncomfortable. And Xena and Gaia and good Salonius all shit themselves because they have no idea why Tullius is there. Good Salonius tries to speak to Tullius to try to figure out what's going on, and Tullius tells him, "Hey, look, you told me of Vadiatus's plans, and you contacted Titus because you wanted to gain favor with me. Don't pretend like you actually care about what's going on. You're doing this for yourself. Walk away with your tail between your legs, or whatever goodwill that you have built towards me is gone." And so good Salonius just abandons it. And so Tullius puts him in his place. Gaia is sorry. Let's back up a second before Gaia gets involved with Tullius. Tullius is obsessed with Gannicus. It's I don't know that it's clear. I think early on it just seemed like, well, Gannicus is obviously a good gladiator, and so Tullius wants to buy him. At this point, Tullius is obsessed with Gannicus. He wants Gannicus however he can have him, and at this point he's like, "Hey, let's have a spar." I used to be a Roman soldier.
I think he believes Gannicus is his because Batiatus bought it, right? He's like, I bought him from Tullius, right?
Not yet, but he does do that.
See, no, but early on when Gannicus first. Oh yeah, maybe I'm thinking of somebody. No, that was Crixus. Never mind.
Yeah, I was going to say,
gladiators mixed up.
Crixus is the gladiator that Batiatus bought.
Maybe he just sees Gannicus. He's he knows Gannicus is awesome and amazing, and will be the next champion.
Regardless, he is obsessed with Gannicus, and you'll see this in the next couple episodes. Everything that he does towards Batiatus is to get Gannicus, and if at any point, and I think Titus knows this, if at any point Batiatus actually hands over Gannicus, that's the end of their rivalry. Tullius just wants Gannicus, but at this point, because Gannicus still belongs to Tullius, he decides, well, I guess humiliating Gannicus is the best I can do, and so he's like, "Hey, let's have a sparring match." And so Tullius fights Gannicus in the middle of this night of pleasure, but Oenomaus tells Gannicus, "Hey, lose this fight. There's no good can come from you winning this fight and either killing or embarrassing Tullius." And so Gannicus has to let Tullius beat him. There are so many times where Gannicus is he can make the killing blow, and you see him look up and he's like, "Fuck," and he just stands there and lets Tullius retaliate against him,
slicing him up too.
Yeah.
So Gannicus is getting sliced all over the place. He gets knocked down, and he puts up the two fingers, the missio, the sign of surrender, and so Tullius wins the day. Ha ha ha.
He was going to kill him, though.
Until
Lucretia told him to stop.
100% going to kill him. And then Lucretia / Xena brings out the masks, And he's like, put this mask on, and you are no longer a proper Roman restrained by morality. You can do whatever you want. And so everyone puts on their masks and goes
Going
to
full
fuck whoever
Caligula
they want
now.
to fuck. Meanwhile, Gaia's like, all right, good Salonius couldn't do anything to figure out what's going on with Tullius, so I will go and fuck Tullius and get some information out of him. And so while Tullius and Gaia are fucking, Gaia tries to persuade Tullius to ease up on the House of Badiatus because they are actually, like, she and Xena are actually friends. And so Tullius and Gaia fuck, and Tullius says, I'll give you my answer to give to Xena. So the night ends. The night of pleasure is over. Everyone is gone. The House of Badiatus' position in the opening games of the arena is secured, and Tullius confronts Xena, and it's very like Xena doesn't know what's going to happen because
it's
good.
great. It's a great sequence because she's scared, and Lucy
Yes.
Lawless is terrified because Good Salonius has left, and he's like, "You sure?" He's like, "I'll stick around until everybody's gone."
He
She's like,
didn't
no.
leave. But before he left, he starts to show interest in Xena, which is why I think this is one of his the start of him kind of becoming bad Salonius, because he starts kind of low key hitting on Xena.
Really? I didn't catch that.
No, he does. Yeah, he does that in the first season of the show too.
Huh.
Yeah, he's
oh
like,
yeah, because he does kind of like have a thing.
yeah,
for
he
her
he
in this.
wants
That's right.
he wants to stay until either Badiatus gets back or the sun comes up. But Xena's like, no, it's fine. Everyone's gone. She doesn't know that Tullius is still back here, I guess. And so good Salonius is like, all right, well, I'll leave. But he's like, the light of House Badiatus would be paler without you, or some ridiculous pickup line. And then Xena's kind of like, okay, thank you, bye.
Yeah.
Anyways, Tullius comes out, confronts Xena. Xena is just scared shitless of Tullius. But then Tullius says, Gaia came to me and asked, for me to show favor towards House of Badiatus. Go find Gaia because she has my answer. And so Xena walks off, and Gaia has been bludgeoned to death. So Tullius kills Gaia. That is his answer to the question of, will he start showing favor to the House of Badiatus? Badiatus and Titus come back, and Titus is like, what the fuck did you do to my Ludus? Clean this shit up, throw Gaia off the cliff. We'll tell people that she got drunk.
Well, that's not till the next episode, right?
Yeah, you're getting a bit ahead. It
Okay,
ends.
sorry. I watched all of, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I watched these back to back. So the actual end of this episode is Xena finds Gaia's dead body.
Dead body, yeah. I love this episode. I think this episode is so good, just in terms of like all the various characters. Like Asher, he's just getting more and more despicable as it goes. So it's really setting up Asher's character.
Are you sure?
He's so great at it too.
Are you sure that the scene with? Yeah, whatever. Well, if we don't talk about it now, we'll talk about it.
Because she finds it, and it ends with Xena screaming. And
it ends on the close up of her face with the bludgeoning.
All right. Yeah, the pitfalls of watching these back to back to back. All right.
Yeah.
But,
so yeah, I love this whole. I love that Gannicus has to be okay with losing, because you can tell, and there's great acting all around in this show. But I think Dustin Clare, just the look on his face, how he wants to kill this guy so bad, and he can't. I don't know if it was the next episode. I think it might be the next episode where he comes to Badiatus and he's like, "Hey, just send me over to that guy's Ludus. I'll find a time to fucking kill him."
Yep.
But yeah, this episode, awesome. I just absolutely love this episode to death.
Yeah, pretty fantastic. I'm not exactly sad that Gaia, the true villain of the series, is gone after this episode.
Were you expecting her to die?
I mean, not now because I've seen this before, but I guess when I first watched this prequel series, like, this is the kind of the issue between me and the prequels. Like, I know that any character that didn't show up in the main series either dies or they just leave and are irrelevant. So I was expecting her to either die or just, at the end, like, oh, well, look at the time, I've got to leave Rome, because she's not
found
in
a new man.
One.
Yeah, found a new man. We also should mention that Gaia and Tullius they've established that they had a relationship in the past when they were younger. I don't know if they were boyfriend-girlfriend back then, or they were just, having
It
an
seems
affair or
like
something, but they
Tullius
knew
was
each
like
other
always
from the
pining
past.
Yeah,
for her.
yeah. Tolia says that when he was younger, he always thought about it, but like he got it tonight and was like, I'm not impressed. What happens.
Well, Ronan, what are your thoughts on this episode?
Well, it's another banger episode. Makes me like, as I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, are there bad episodes of this whole series? And it's like, not really. So yeah, this is another good banger episode. Anytime there's a pleasure night episode, either in this or in blood,
I never want to see another pleasure night episode, but I know we are.
I'll watch one with Alithia. That's fine with me. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's always. It's like there's always going to be another pleasure night episode. Not in this particular series, spoilers, but in the next series. Season 1, they make their triumphant return.
I think they end in season 1. I don't know if we get pleasure nights in in the final 2 seasons.
No, we do because pleasure nights become let's have sex and torture captured gladiators.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for. I guess I blocked that out of my mind. But yeah, this is a cool episode, and this is the kind of episode that makes you immediately want to jump into the next one. It's that classic.
We did.
Yeah, that classic television trope of it ends on a cliffhanger. This main character we've been following this whole time is dead at the enemy of this. Like, how the fuck are they going to get out of this? And this whole time, like, if I remember back to when I first started watching it, I'm still thinking, like, how does Gannicus get out of all of this? Because obviously we know what ends up happening to him, and I won't spoil it yet, but at the time when I was watching this, they don't really. Well, I'll save that to the final episode. So,
does it feel weird that the last, like this episode and the last episode, Gannicus doesn't do a whole lot. Like he's kind of there in the background pining for Melita, but even though he is ostensibly like the star of the series, like the prequel, season 1 is the story of Spartacus, the prequel series is the story of Gannicus. He doesn't do a whole lot, like right in the middle of the series.
I disagree. I think this is not the story of Gannicus. I think it's the story of Batiatus and Lucretia.
Well, Gannicus is on the DVD cover, so it is the story of Gannicus.
He's a strong, muscled man, but I definitely think that this is really the story of how Batiatus and Lucretia came to be, because as we see in the next episode, we'll save it, but the next episode, this might be one of my favorites, but we'll save it to then. So stay tuned next week, next Thursday. We drop these every Thursday here on Outpost Unknown. Stay tuned for episode 5 of Gods of the Arena called Reckoning. And yes, we have a reckoning coming. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Jupiter's Croc here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. We are almost done covering Gods of the Arena, the prequel series to Spartacus, Blood and Sand, but we got a couple episodes to go. This one, episode 5, entitled Reckoning. Steve, or shall I say Ploticus. I'm here with Ronan as well, as usual every week. Ploticus, take it away.
So I'm still not sure that last episode actually ended where you guys think it did. There's a scene either at the end of episode 4 or the beginning of episode 5 where Batiatus and Titus return. Titus loses his shit and says, fucking pitch Gaia's body off the cliff. We'll tell people that she got slipped, and then fucking clean the house. And then this is where Titus really starts going against Lucretia, and Titus, Batiatus and Lucretia / Xena try to blame Titus as you were trying to remain friendly with Tullius, and this is what we got. You gave away our place in the first games, and so we had to continue scheming to get it back, and Titus is like, nope, you fucked up, I take no responsibility with this. Anyways, regardless of where that scene happened in what episode, the next thing you see is Melita and Gannicus finding each other in the wine cellar.
That's the beginning of this episode.
Which means what I just said happened at the end of episode 4.
No, I don't think so.
I feel like you just admitted that I was right.
No, I would never do such a thing. ever.
Alternative facts.
Anyways, Melita and Gannicus find each other in the wine cellar, and they finally they give in. Like they've been trying to talk each other out of their feelings, but it happens, and they start having sex, and then all of a sudden you see a blade come through Gannicus's throat, and Onomaus is standing behind him, and so Onomaus has killed Gannicus. And then he stabs Melita, and I don't know what you guys thought, but I was like, holy shit! I thought Gannicus was going to be in the rest of the series, but no, he's fucking dead at the beginning of episode 5.
Yeah, when I first watched this, I was like, this can't be real, right? Because we know that Gannicus doesn't show up in Blood and Sand, so everyone's technically fair game. And at first, I wasn't thinking dream sequence, and I was just like, wow, that's ballsy.
See, I was hoping that we would not reveal it was a dream sequence to later on and just let people think Gannicus was dead. But Matt ruined it. Matt fucking killed the joke dead.
The scene only lasts 45 seconds.
I know. Anyways, so Melita obviously continues to have strong feelings for Gannicus. Now she's at the point where she is dreaming about him, but then also dreaming about Onomaus's vengeance. Titus has instructed Xena and Melita, Diona, and Navia to not only pitch Gaia's body off the cliff, but clean up the room that Gaia was staying in. Fucking sprinkle salt and say prayers around the ludus. We want there to be no evidence that Gaia was either here. The guy was ever here, and we want to make it so her fucking spirit suffers if she tries to linger around.
She's a Roman citizen.
I am sick of this fucking Roman citizen sitting around here couch surfing on my fucking house, drinking my wine. I don't even want her spirit here. Pour the salt.
She's ghost fucking people while they come into the
it's not enough to clean the room she died in and throw out her possessions and throw her body off the cliff. Titus demands that they sprinkle salt around the ludus and then perform rituals to clean the ludus.
I love when he's coming up with the thing. What do you mean? Won't they see that that's wrong? Like she's on the rocks below. She's a wino. People will just expect that she got drunk and fell off. Wise Titus.
Which again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying a few episodes ago, where it's maybe Titus at some point had a dark heel turn before he turned face, because
maybe a prequel to the prequel.
Maybe he's pitched his fair share of winos off the cliff. We don't know.
I love that the ludus is right there on that cliff, man. It's just
yeah. Anyways, so that is going on, and Lucretia kind of makes a deal with Melita. Melita's like, hey, I know Gaia was real close to you, and you don't want this to happen. How about we just tell Titus that we did this salt ritual? And Gaia's or Xena's like, yo, thank you. At least I can lie about putting salt in my house.
Thank you very much, Domina. I mean, you've been blackmailing me into getting my husband to get the gladiators to go along with the pleasure night, and you're going to continue to blackmail me with that. But you're just such a stand-up gal. I'm not going to sprinkle the salts.
Yeah. So, anyways, Titus he's had enough of Lucretia. He tells Badiatus that Lucretia has done nothing for you. You married her against my will and my advice. She hasn't provided you with any children. She
that's the big thing right there.
Yeah. That and she came from nothing. She was just a nameless Roman. She had no money. Her name carried no weight. You married beneath your station. And so Titus tells Badiatus you will divorce Xena, or both you and Xena will leave the ludus, and I will just run it myself. And so Badiatus is struggling with it. His relationship with Xena is suffering. But we'll come back to that. So let's talk about the gladiators. Barca and or Crixus is trying to like kind of make amends with Barca. Like Barca understands that Octus like died in like honorable combat in the arena, so he doesn't blame Crixus at all. But he's still in this. He's still depressed, and
Yeah,
Crixus
depressed.
is trying to like bring him back from it. And I don't know if it was in this episode or the last episode, but Crixus, like the gladiators are all like training and eating, and Barca is sitting alone in his room with leftover pigeons, and Crixus
The
brings
pigeons
him.
that Asher did not
Yes,
eat. He didn't eat them all. That's the good thing. He did not eat
yeah,
them
he
all.
left a few pigeons, and so Crixus goes back to Barca with some bread. And he's like, here's some food for your pigeons, and Crixus tells Barca essentially like, gives him like his backstory and Crixus tells Barca, hey, you know, uh, I've had this shitty life where people have been fighting me and beating me and shitting on me, and the only thing that I want right now is on glory and honor and whatnot. Like Octus is the first person I actually killed. Like I promise you that he will not be forgotten. Basically like look, we're brothers in gladiator school now. Like can we please get past this? And
Yeah. Did we
you have the
mention
beginnings of
last
their.
episode? Crixus got the mark. I think
Yeah,
we forgot to
I
mention that.
think we said it, and then that was when Zencaster died on us a couple episodes ago, and
Oh, okay.
I don't know if we mentioned it again, but yes,
Yeah.
after Crixus beat Octus in the arena, Crixus gets the mark, so he is actually a gladiator now, but he's trying to repair the relationship with Barca. Barca seems agreeable to it. So
he's
there,
just trying to be a homie, he's
yeah.
just making things right.
Asher and Dagon are fighting, and
I
Dagon
wonder why.
is not going easy on Asher anymore. And Asher's like, "What the hell happened? Like, why does my friend, who I hoard out to this Roman guy, not like me anymore?" And
God, Asher.
the gladiators all call him on his bullshit. Dagon also reveals that he is starting to learn the language. Like
Love that.
yes, there's going to be the gladiators say something to Asher, and then Dagon like makes it clear that he understood at least part of that, and Asher's like,
Well,
oh
he
fuck.
mistranslates it because Asher
Yeah,
intentionally translates something that wasn't said, and then Dagon's like, "No, I actually heard what they said here." And then Asher's like,
The
"What?"
tiny man's. It's like the tiny man's right.
yes. And then
I like Dagon, by the way. I
Dagon's
like
great.
this character at first just seemed kind of like assholish, but I love over just a few episodes. I'm like, God, I really love this gladiator. I don't want anything bad to happen to this guy, but he's not in the next season. So
And like this is like one of the few like actual humorous parts of this prequel series, because like Dagon will be
yeah.
talking. Dagon will talk to someone, and you'll see the subtitles, and Dagon is telling Crixus, "I will fuck your corpse," and Asher's like, "He looks forward to welcoming you into the Brotherhood."
Yes. It's so funny. I love it.
But the scene ends like when Asher really knows he fucked up is when Dagon indicates that he's starting to learn the language, and then he says something to Asher in Syrian, but then he concludes it with the word friend. And so Asher knows, oh shit. This is going to become real important later on, because Titus is like, yeah, I'm here, I am in charge of the Ludus, I am going to get shit back in order, and I'm going to do that with or without Badiatus. And so Titus tells Onomaus to set up a tournament, and like the winners of the tournament will get to remain in the gladiator school. The losers of the tournament, or whoever has the most losses, I don't know how they're ranking them, they will be sold to the mines, and the ultimate winner is the person that I will consider champion of the house. And so various gladiators fight. We get like this extended montage of their battles, and there's two big fights that actually are super like relevant to the rest of the series. One is Dagon versus Asher, and at this point, Asher has lost every single fight he's been in, so he knows like, if I lose this again, I am 100% going to the mines. And he kind of tries to talk Dagon into going easy on him. I don't know that he outright says, throw the match for me, so much as just at least don't make me look stupid out there so I have a chance. But Dagon kicks his ass, and Asher's like, you've won the fight. At least let me stand on my feet like a man. And when he does that, Dagon, it's like, all right, fine. Like my last act as your friend, I will let you get back to your feet. Asher cheap shots him and stabs him in the eye with a wooden sword. So now, like, Dagon has lost his right eye.
I would
So
never do this to you guys.
Thank
If you're in
you.
this situation, I
Thank
would
you.
never do that.
I was always worried about you, Matt, but it's nice to know.
So I guess Asher is considered the winner.
Yeah, and Asher just gets up all like, yeah, I'm the mighty Asher. Like,
Mighty Asher. Fuck what happens to my enemies.
Every gladiator there sees what he did.
Yeah.
It's like, what? This guy is delusional,
Like,
man.
Asher is like this incredibly manipulative person when he's dealing with Romans. He absolutely does not know how to read the room when he's dealing with gladiators.
Yes. But he so wants to be a gladiator. He still wants that glory, but that's not his lot in life.
Yeah. So the other fight of note is the final match, and it's going to be Gannicus versus Crixus. But originally, there comes a point. I watching all these back to back is messing with the flow of events here. But is it? Gannicus is at one point not going to fight at all because Tullius has decided, I am going to go ahead and honor the contract. Or sorry, Titus says, I'm going to go ahead and honor the contract with Tullius, and so I'm just going to hand Gannicus over. But Oenomaus tells him, I agree with Batiatus on this. Like, Gannicus is actually a damn good gladiator. You should give him a chance. And so Titus says, fine. The final match is Crixus versus Gannicus. They both have the same number of wins, so the winner will be champion of the House of Batiatus. And if Gannicus wins, he will be my champion. I will cancel the sell to Tullius, and I will deal with the consequences. And so Crixus and Gannicus fight. I still feel like it's obvious that Gannicus can beat him if he was trying. But there comes a point where, and Oenomaus tells Gannicus this. Oenomaus tells Gannicus, hey, if you lose this fight, you are leaving this ludus. And so towards the end of the fight, Gannicus looks up and shares like another look with Melita, and he's just like, I can't fucking do this anymore. I can't do this.
Well, he sees her multiple times, right? Because she's standing up there through the whole
she keeps
fight,
looking up at him.
and he keeps getting, distracted, shall we say.
Yes. But the last time he's like, yeah, there's no like internal dialogue or anything here, but you can just tell like he's done.
He drops his guard.
He can't do this anymore, so he drops his guard and lets Crixus beat him. And Crixus, to his credit, immediately realizes what happened. So Crixus is not happy to be champion of House of Batiatus. He knows that Gannicus just gave up. Yes. So now things are in place for Gannicus to be sold to Tullius. Meanwhile, Titus had given Batiatus till the end of the contest to make his decision about Lucretia. It's like, you can dissolve your marriage and stay here in the ludus, or you and Xena can leave together.
There was a very important scene that you missed a while before this, where they went to
I'm sorry, Spartacus Jr. Fill in the gap.
It's Interrupticus, all right?
Interrupticus.
So the big thing that Steve
it's my Roman name.
Fuckicus.
I want one. Oh.
so
never mind. I would stab you in the eye, asshole kiss.
So the scene that this happens when the tournament is just about to start up, because Tullius comes in when the tournament is happening, and Titus actually, because he's like, okay, well, a Roman woman died in my house. I'm like, at this point, even I have a limit as to how far I'm willing to to bend over for this guy. But Tullius is like, well, okay, I might have fucked up by killing somebody in your house, but hey, I mean, here's what's going to happen. If you just give me what I've always wanted, Gannicus, I'm just going to forget all of this happened. I'll give you guys good seats in the openings of the new games, like of the new arena, because in the last matches of the old arena, House of Batiatus didn't have any matches. I was like, so give me Gannicus, and I'll forget all of this, and you guys can go about to what you were always doing. And Titus does not realize that Gannicus is actually a stone cold badass. He just he came in after Gannicus's mind got all fucked up by what happened in episode 2. So
I didn't forget about that. I was going to wait to talk about it when I got to the point of dealing with the poison wine.
I think you
When
forgot about it. I'm
when
pretty
did
sure.
which was it last episode or this episode where Titus and Batiatus go to the
That's
old
this one.
arena?
That's
Okay,
this one. I was just about to
okay.
go to that because that's because when Gannicus like when Crixus beats Gannicus, that like like Batiatus and Lucy Lawless, they were about to leave. That was them telling, oh yeah, we're ready to leave, because I'm not breaking up, I'm not dissolving my marriage,
Yeah,
because he
that's right.
tells them that when they go to the old arena, Lucretia had kind of hinted like, yeah, you need to kill this fucker.
And
Like
this is the
Yes.
great thing about this because this episode shows that Batiatus and Lucretia, they love each other unconditionally,
100%.
and Batiatus is willing to give up everything. There's that moment when he's with her where he's like, "We're gonna have to leave. We got no job opportunities. We got nothing. We're basically be on the streets. But I would rather be on the streets with nothing. I would rather give up my dream." To be with you than and it's like that's the power couple, right? That's the power couple we love to hate that goes through the next season. It's like I get it now. I totally understand it, and it
so
makes you
that
like Batiatus more, right?
It
It
does.
makes you love Batiatus more, and it's disturbing
all
on
of
many levels to me.
yeah, I mean, all of the villains in the show. This is a diet. This is an outside glance. All the villains of the show, for the most part, they all have some relatable aspect that can make you like them. There's a reason why I say Asher is one of
Uh,
my favorite characters
Not
because
that
Disagree.
Cometodius or whatever his name was. Not that guy.
no,
Because disagree.
the
Vedius,
main
Tullius, and
characters.
Cassius.
Yeah,
Don't.
the main
There's nothing
characters.
redeemable about anything. Anyways, I wanted to cover the tournament first. The tournament's done, but now so other things that happened during the tournament, like Ronan said, Tullius shows up. And Titus calls him out on killing Gaia. Tullius wants to make peace, and also get Gannicus. And he brings a jug of like fancy honeyed wine to Titus. Uh, so we also see, like we've said, Batiatus and Xena start scheming against Titus. Batiatus has the chance to kill his dad, but he chooses not to. He says, "You
Because
know
he
what?
loves his dad.
Yeah, he
That's the
does."
other thing too. It's like these people are family. Even though Batiatus and his dad are fighting all the time, you can't just kill your dad. I mean that's like was it patricide? Is that killing your dad? That's a
I think
big
so.
no-no in ancient Roman society. That's like a big major no-no.
Well,
Uh,
Batiatus was thinking of it. He has like
yeah.
a chunk of the old arena in his hand, like a club, and he's about to do the deed. But then Titus like starts saying nice things about Batiatus, and so Batiatus is like, "God damn it!" And so he just walks over and like hands him the club. He's like, "Here, a memento."
I
Uh,
can't beat you over the head. Although I will say that heading back to Lucy Lawless in that bathtub, not a bad consolation prize.
yeah, I
When's
mean,
the last time you're ever going to be in that
I
nice
would walk
bathtub?
out on my family for Lucy Lawless, 100%.
As we said,
Uh,
a fine wine, an aged
anyways,
fine wine.
So, Tullius has been there. We talked about Batiatus and Dad in the old arena. We've talked about Batiatus and Xena, their decision to leave the Ludus and stay together. The next thing that happens is Tullius starts getting sick. It's like right after the end of the games, or the end of the tournament, and Batiatus and Xena are just about to leave and just disappear into the night together. Tullius starts getting incredibly sick. And
Titus.
yeah, sorry. I did too many fucking names. Titus starts getting incredibly sick. He is confined to bed. Baudius, Onomaus, and the Medicus, Jesus Christ, they decide that we're gonna
Was
we're
that
gonna
his name? Was he born and his parents were like, I dub it the Medicus?
well, they call him the Medicus, so I assume that's a
Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
Same thing
Medicus
that
is the title
Noctorius.
for middle.
So the three of them go out into the night to
Get the
to
herbs.
find medicine, to get the herbs required to save Titus.
I love
And
it when it's
so-
like it's too late at night. The Walgreens ain't open. We're gonna have
Yep.
to go search the
There are
city to
no
procure the herbs.
24-hour drugstores in Capua. So that this leaves Xena and Melita to take care of Titus. And Melita says, "Hey, I know this is a bad time, but my friend Gannicus is going to be leaving tomorrow. I would like to go have final words for him. And so Titus is given a cup of Tullius's wine. He drinks it, and then the rest of the wine goes with Melita down to Gannicus. And so Melita and Gannicus, for real this time, start actually having sex. They give in to their feelings for one another. Meanwhile, back up in Titus's room, Titus is like, Xena, like, you're taking care of me, even though I treat you like shit. Like, I see how much Badiatus actually loves you. Just tell me that I've been wrong about how bad you are. And she's like, oh, you're wrong, because I'm way fucking worse.
That's a great moment. Great fucking moment.
She's like, I have been poisoning your wine. She confesses to the crime. Like, I have been poisoning your wine the entire time you've been here, not to kill you, just to make your like cough and overall health worse, to get you out of here.
But wait, she admits to doing it the first time.
She's the reason why. She's the reason why he has the cough.
Yes,
he never had it.
Back in episode 3, she offers wine to Titus and then tells Badiatus, "Do not drink any of this." She makes up a plausible excuse, like it just doesn't sit well with you at this time of day, or wherever the hell it was. But that's the foreshadowing.
Well, what I love about this,
Titus, and does not let her husband have any.
What I love about this, though, is through this whole prequel series, it's sort of set up that, like, well, Lucretia is not a horrible, evil person. It's Gaia that eventually turns her sort of evil and stuff like that. But Lucretia admits here, like, no. Remember many years back when you had originally had to leave this Ludus, Titus? I fucking was poisoning you back then. Now I restarted when you came back because I hate you and I hate how you screw with my husband. But I was fucking poisoning you back then. And it shows, like, no, she's been kind of evil the entire time.
Just a smidge of evil.
Kind of evil.
Just a little. I mean, like, the objective was, as she admits, the objective was never to kill him. She was never out to kill him. She just wanted him to leave.
Yes. Because she knows how much that would hurt Badiatus if his dad were to die.
She was trying to keep Titus sick, not kill him. But now that Titus is trying to kill their marriage or force them to leave, now she's like, well, I have to have a permanent solution. So she pours like actual I will kill you poison into Tullius's wine, and then Titus drinks it.
The most dangerous of all poison.
Titus dies.
That's what's on the label. I will kill you poison.
I will kill you poison. So Titus dies. However, what Xena didn't think about was Melita took the wine down with her down to see Gannicus. And so Melita drinks some of the wine, and Gannicus says, no, thank you. So Gannicus is on the verge of death, but he says, I don't like honeyed wine.
Yeah,
he doesn't want honeyed wine.
He wants the bitter taste
so Melita
of the wine.
Melita starts dying in the middle of sex and dies. So Titus is dead. Badiatus comes back, sees what's happened. They're like, oh, Gannicus, you give me Melita's body. You absolutely cannot tell Oenomaus that she was with you when she died. That's pretty much the end of the episode. The only other thing of note here, and this is not a big plot point for the prequel series, but it becomes a major plot point season 1. Lucy Lawless is very hurt by the accusations that she can't give Badiatus, she can't give him a kid at all, apparently, but she specifically hasn't given him a son. So she begins having sex with Crixus, and he gets a haircut because of her.
But that happened in the previous episode, right? Like the first time that happened in the previous episode.
Again, like we're watching these back to back. So it's becoming a blur. If we haven't talked about it yet, Crixus and Xena are now banging.
Yeah, because the episode before she does it, but she's like kind of grossed out by it because she's like, oh, you're a slave. Don't look at me, blah, 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 blah. And in this one, she's like, well, if I'm going to have to do this, we're going to clean you up a little bit. We're going to make you look like in Blood and Sand and not like a wild animal, I think is what she calls
There's a reoccurring thing in Rome, apparently.
I think you two are confused about what episodes these segments are happening in.
No, I'm pretty sure that like her having sex with him is in this episode because it happens a little like just after the point where it's like she's like Body Otis kind of blows up and says, "You never gave me a son."
She
and then
does it
realizes
twice, though. She
No,
does
she
it
doesn't.
because
she
Crixus
does
says,
it in
"I
the
did."
next episode.
She does it in the previous episode because
No, she does it in this episode.
No, well, they do it twice.
Matt, who
They
was
do it in the
Spartacus?
first episode.
Who is Spartacus
They
here?
do it in the first episode because she's like, just get it over with and don't look at me.
Hang
In
on,
this
I
episode,
am going to pull up the
in
Spartacus
this episode, Crixus tells her, "Well, I didn't think I pleased you that first time," and then she's like, "Okay," and they do it again.
But he doesn't get the haircut until the last episode.
Yeah, doubt. Matt is wrong. All right, so I'm
Whatever.
on the Spartacus wiki.
Whatever.
Okay.
I will never
All right.
admit to defeat here.
According to the wiki, this episode is the one where Lucretia asks Crixus, how many sons did your dad have and how many sons did your grandpa have? They do that the first time they fuck. That happens in this episode. Therefore,
Okay, so maybe I got this one wrong.
Oh, now hang on. I have another question. Let me go back to the previous episode.
So thanks everyone for listening to this episode of Jupiter's.
Shut up. Yeah, according to the wiki, the opening of this episode is the dream sequence, and Gaia's and Titus saying pitch her body off the cliff. It was in last episode. I was correct. Fuck you both.
Whatever.
Alternative facts.
So what do we think of this episode? Ronan, we'll start with you first.
Well, this is another banger episode. There aren't any bad episodes of God of the Arena. No, there's none. They're all great, and this is another good one because now the stage is finally set. Because while Lucy Lawless was also telling Titus about how I've been poisoning you, she also says I decided to kill you not even necessarily just to get rid of you because I want Body Otis to take vengeance for Gaia. She did this shit for Gaia. That's the reason why. So now everything is primed and set for the last episode.
Because they're gonna blame Tullius for the honeyed wine. That's how it's all gonna come to play.
Diona escapes. I think that's the last big plot point.
Oh yeah.
We forgot poor Diona. Navia helps her escape. That's the thing. Navia takes a bunch of coins when they're tossing out all of Gaia's belongings, which Gaia apparently was dirt poor, and yet she had a bag of coins. And they were able to give that to Diona, who then was like, "Oh, thank you. I'll see you again." And she does the next episode. We'll get to it. For me personally, this is one of my. I think this is my favorite episode of Gods of the Arena for sure. I think this is where everything just comes together perfectly in this. I love the reveal of Lucy Lawless just being very manipulative and sort of evil. I love the fact that all the stuff with the gladiators, like, okay, this makes sense now as to why Xena's banging Crixus in Blood and Sand, and there's a reason for it. It's not just, oh, hey, I'm cheating on my husband with a gladiator because I think it's fun. There's an actual reason behind it because she can't have a kid. And even Body Otis yells at her. He's like, you haven't given me a son. You haven't given me any kid at all.
Well, it seems like the problem would be, like, whose fault is it? Because
we don't know.
Yeah, Xena thinks, the problem is me. I haven't given Body Otis a kid. Which, I mean, if it was her, fucking someone else wouldn't help. But maybe they just didn't understand that back in
ancient times. I don't think they knew, right? I think it was always assumed in society that it's the woman's fault, right? It's the woman who can't do it.
As you do, the good old days.
Good Ronicus in with the win there.
For all we know, maybe Body Otis has Hank Hill's narrow urethra, and maybe that's part of the reason why.
It'd be interesting, has he impregnated any of the slaves that he routinely has sex with? I mean,
I bring this up because there is a 5-year time jump between Gods of the Arena and Spartacus episode 1, and there's still no kid.
Well,
yeah, that's probably unless Crixus 2 also has the narrow urethra.
Everyone in this show is shooting blanks.
I love this episode. It's probably my favorite of this Gods of the Arena. How about you, Steve?
Fantastic. I mean, there's not a bad episode in this series. in the prequel series. Let me put that disclaimer on here.
I'm actually really interested now that we're kind of watching these in chronological order, sort of back to back. I'm actually interested to see if I will have the same reaction to the first 3 episodes of Blood and Sand that I've had in the past, because I don't think I've actually just watched them chronologically all the way through before. I've rewatched multiple seasons, but not chronologically. So, I mean, we're praising Gods of the Arena for enhancing and making Blood and Sand sort of better by, more plot and stuff that makes the stuff that we saw in Blood and Sand. Oh, okay, yeah, that just makes it better. Very similar to how Andor makes the original trilogy better.
Shut up.
So I'm curious if the first 3 episodes, if I'll like them a lot more. But we're going to get there very, very soon in a couple episodes. So with that, everybody, thanks for listening to this. We'll be back next Thursday with the finale, the grand finale of Gods of the Arena, the bitter end. We're going to see how it all shakes out. What happens to Gannicus? What happens to our players here? How are they going to get out of this Tullius situation? Stay tuned next week. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think of this series.
Or don't.
Or don't. That's fine. 5, 4, 3, 2. God damn you bastards. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jupiter's Croc, episode 6 of Gods of the Arena, the bitter end. I am joined by Ploticus.
Yep, hello.
Ronicus.
It's Interrupticus.
Interrupticus. God damn it, I can't get anything right. And clearly, Magnetocus, who has decided to show up and fuck up the Zencaster, apparently. So,
I want that audio used for something.
I will try to put that audio at the very beginning, because I caught just a little bit of you guys saying it, but I have no idea if it recorded. So we'll see what happens here. So we are wrapping up Gods of the Arena. It went way too fast. I almost wish that this season was like 10 episodes like the other ones. But Ploticus, take it away.
There is a lot of shit going on in this episode, so feel free to step in if I miss something.
Interrupticus will, for sure.
Yeah, Interrupticus will. Titus is dead. They're having a funeral for him, and Vedius shows up. That little cocksucker Vedius. I fucking hate his face.
Weasley eyes?
He shows up and says, hey, I'm here to pay my respects, but also, before he died, your dad said he was going to sell us Gannicus, and Bodias blows up. It's like, you come to me on this fucking day about this, and Vedius is like, we've already given you like 8 days to figure your shit out. Like, the mourning period is over. Give us Gannicus.
Steve, I'm sorry this bad thing happened to you, but remember you're going to sell me that Transformer. I really want that Transformer, dude.
So Badianus is in mourning over the loss of his dad. Onomaus is in mourning over the loss of Melita. Gannicus shows up to meet with him, and I don't think Onomaus ever Onomaus doesn't find out in this prequel series what actually happened between the two of them, but Gannicus tells him, hey, she loved you the most. She's always gonna want you, and blah blah blah. He's not confessing his guilt, but he's trying to be there for Onomaus as best he can. So after the funeral, I guess Badiatas brought the body outside by the cliff where his Ludus is, and he's gonna have just some fights to send his father onto the afterlife. He also says that it's a brand new day. Like, we're not bound to the rules that my father set, so none of you are actually going to be sent to the mines, even if you lost all of your fights in that tournament. Sure. And so when Badiatus says this, the newly one-eyed Dagon looks at Asher and smiles, and Asher's like, ah, shit. So Asher thought that he was going to be at least somewhat safe, but no, Dagon's not going anywhere. So now Badiatus has to hatch this scheme. He believes
always scheming.
Yes, he believes that Tullius killed his dad with the poison wine. I don't think he ever finds out through the entire rest of this series as a whole that it was actually Xena. But he is going to kill Tullius, and so he hatches this scheme with Salonius, and good Salonius, and so
good.
good Salonius is going to go to Tullius and tell Tullius, hey, Batiatus is trying to sell Gannicus to another like far away Ludus, so you can't have him. Like he knows he can't keep him, but he doesn't want you to have him. So he's going to sell Gannicus to these Syrian slavers, and he'll just say that that Gannicus escaped, and so you will never see Gannicus. And uh, Tullius is just fucking irate at this point. Like I said, he is obsessed with having Gannicus. I don't know
He
why
flips the
he
table in
wants
anger.
Gannicus. He flips a table. He threatens to cut Salonius's face off. But Salonius convinces him, hey, like I know where the meeting is happening. We can get there. And so Batiatus shows up. Then Tullius shows up. Tullius and Vedius show up. And Batiatus's men surround Tullius and kill all of them except for Tullius. Tullius and Vedius. So Salonius kidnaps Vedius and is going to try to force Vedius to provide an alibi or an excuse for why Tullius isn't there. Batiatus, meanwhile, he and the rest of his guys, which include Oenomaus and Gannicus, who also think that Tullius is responsible for the deaths of Titus and Melita, uh, they beat the shit out of Tullius, tie him up, and they take him to the newly constructed arena.
I
And
love watching Tullius get his ass beat.
oh,
by the way.
it's so good. It's so cathartic watching
Yes.
what happens to this piece of shit.
Even though he
It's-
didn't do any of this.
Even though this beating for this particular reason, not warranted. Nope, not warranted.
Doesn't
at
matter.
all.
Tullius is so shitty that we don't care if he takes the fall for the one scheme he wasn't involved with. But so Batiatus and Tullius have like their final conversation, and Tullius tries to like talk him down. It's like, hey, you know what, Batiatus, you beat me. I underestimated you. Let's
GG.
talk this out. Yep, GG. Good game. So Batiatus like humors him for a minute, and he's like, all right, so what are you offering? And Tullius says, well, you can keep Gannicus, and I will make sure he fights in the arena. And Batiatus just says, offer more. And Tullius is like, well, here's this other thing that you want. I don't remember what he says. Maybe, I don't know, continued placement in the games. It doesn't matter. Money, whatever. And then Batiatus is like, offer more. And Tullius says, just name what you want, and I will make sure that you have it. And Batiatus says, I want to see you suffer. And so Batiatus, first Batiatus like calls out Tullius for killing his dad, and Tullius has no idea what he's talking about, but it doesn't matter. Tullius kind of knows what's going to happen at this point. So after this last dialogue, Batiatus stabs Tullius in the gut, informs Tullius that, hey, we're going to make Vedius provide an excuse for why you're not here. So Tullius is like, when people know what you did to me, they're going to come for you. And Batiatus is like, no one's ever going to know, and stabs Tullius. Oenomaus and Gannicus continue to stab Tullius in the gut, and then they made a hole in the wall of the arena, and they stick Tullius in it and like brick it up while Tullius is still alive.
So good.
Holy shit, this is so fucking good.
It's so good.
Meanwhile, good Salonius, I can't say that too many more times. He is with Vedius, and good Salonius tells Vedius, you are going to go to the arena and you are going to tell people that Tullius had to unexpectedly leave, and then you are going to follow him. And if you don't make this happen, we are going to kill you because you no longer have Tullius protecting you. And Vedius, he hates it, but he agrees. Let's see what else happens prior to the actual games. Xena starts eyeing up Navia, and she makes Navia take Melita's place. So she is like the body slave, I think is what it's called. Basically, like
There's a
Navia
word
is,
for it. I forget
Yeah.
what it is.
I think it was body slave, but regardless, it's like it's Xena's main slave, and Xena tells
Be by
her
my
that,
side at all times.
Yes. you will never leave my side, and so that sets up Navia's character.
If you're Navia, are you
season
like, I don't want this promotion?
this kind of sucks, gotta say.
I will say though that I love the character of Melita. Didn't really touch on this in that, but it was really sad when she died last episode. I
Yeah,
was just like, oh man, that sucks because another thing that
like
this
she
show
is the
does.
most innocent. Like her and Diona are like the most innocent characters in this
Uh,
show that shitty things happen to.
yeah, when good characters die, that's what really hits. And so rest in peace, Melita.
Yes. Uh, so I think this is the episode. Yeah, it's the final episode of this. This is the episode where Xena goes to fuck Crixus again and has him like get a haircut. So I think that's everything that happens like up to like the games, and the games are going to be in the new arena, and prior to it was supposed to be like a bunch of Badiatus's men and a bunch of Vedius's men, but Vedius shows up and he does exactly what Salonius tells him to do, and so he says, "Hey,
Sly Salonius.
yep, Tullius had to leave. Tullius had to leave, and also I'm going to follow behind him. And I'm leaving the gladiator business." And Bodiatus is like, "Oh, that's a shame. Hey, I don't want you to go away empty-handed. The good Salonius and I we'll each buy half of your men." And Vedius is like, "Oh no, don't worry about it. Salonius already bought all of them." And so this is the point where Salonius stops being good Salonius and he becomes Salonius with a spine. Because this is the good.
Yeah. We should point out because I don't know if we touched on it last episode, but Batiatus gets in Salonius's face and basically insults his entire existence.
That
Right?
was the beginning of this episode in the funeral.
Whatever, whenever the fuck it was.
There's a point where Badiatus tells, because Salonius is trying to keep the peace. Salonius, even though he counts Badiatus as a good friend, he has much more in common with Titus. Like he's fine sucking up to the powerful Romans. Like he is perfectly okay just being a well-respected Lanista. And Badiatus tells him, no woman will have you. No one wants you. You don't have a spine. Just shit all over him.
Yeah.
And so
And
this is
Xena's the one that's like, hey, wait, whoa. We're getting a
yeah.
little too aggro here. But he's
There's also a point where Salonius, I don't remember if it's in this episode or the last one, where Salonius says, if shit goes wrong, Xena, you're welcome to come stay with me, and I will also extend that invitation to Lucy Lawless. If anything in your life ever goes wrong,
absolutely.
you are welcome to come stay with me.
Yes.
But
Our
Salonius,
significant others would understand, right?
yeah, it's fine. It's Xena. Like Xena's on everyone's list.
Fine wine, as Ronicus would say.
Yes. So Salonius makes another pass at Xena, but this is the point where Salonius turns on Badiatus, and so after Vedius leaves, Badiatus goes and finds Spine Salonius and tells him, "What the fuck? We were supposed to split them in." And Salonius finally tells him, "Look, you have shit on me like our entire friendship. Like you treat me like absolute garbage. It is clear to me that you only care about yourself. And if screwing me over would get you ahead in life, you would absolutely fucking do it. So we are done. I'm doing my own thing now. Our friendship is over." And Badiatus doesn't have a comeback. Like he's like, well, shit, you called me out on it.
They mentioned that when Salonius buys all of these gladiators from Vedius, Salonius becomes like the biggest ludus essentially in terms of sheer numbers. Like it dwarfs Batiatus.
Yeah, and so the games essentially become Badiatus's men versus Salonius's men. And so the deal is there's going to be a bunch of fights throughout the day, and the winner of each fight, and there are 20 people in the final fight. So this is like a entire fucking day of gladiator battles. And so I think we end up with Badiatus had 7 men win, and Salonius had 13 men win. And so they're going to fight in a big Royal Rumble at the end of this episode. And so it's I'm trying to think
It's
of like
better
The
than
main
Royal
event.
Rumble.
The main
Just
event
saying.
is the main event is an Inferno match.
yeah. So we get through all of the fights. None of the individual fights are really of note, but we get to the end and it's 20 people. 20. So presumably there were 20 previous fights in these games. It's 7 from Badiatus, 13 from 13 from Salonius. I guess we should back up a second. Before the actual gladiator games begin, there are executions to welcome everyone to the arena.
Oh, I
And
tried. Damn it.
and Maticus, who shows up for the execution? Who gets rolled out there?
Diona. She died. She
Yeah,
dies.
Diona and 3 other, I assume, escaped slaves get brought out, and they're all being killed. Diona is the last to be executed, and before she's executed, she and Navia make eye contact, stare at each other while crying, and then Diona's executed.
Yeah.
Moving on.
God, it's no.
Right.
That's actually like a really hard part of the show as well because they had mentioned probably in one of previous episode or whatever when Navy is trying to get her out or before she actually escapes. They're talking about if you leave, you're a fugitive slave, and they will come after you and they will find you, and that was part of the reason why Navia gave her all that money is like just get on a ship or something, get the fuck out, like because they're like. Navy was like, I can't go because I am way too important here. You're kind of like, it sounds bad to say, but they won't miss you, so to speak, if you get out of here. Like you're not someone that's on their radar.
It won't be noticed for a long time if you leave.
Yeah, but somehow she was caught as a runaway slave, and then they do have that moment though where because that character she wanted to basically kill herself because she's like I don't want to live in this life and blah blah, but it's still sad. They have that sort of acknowledgement of glance moment.
Yeah. So last episode when Diona escapes, like Navia finds her crying, and Diona says like I would if they basically like just give me to another gladiator, I want that gladiator to just kill me. I don't want to do this anymore. And Navia says like, no, I can't watch you die. And so she helps Diona escape. And in the following episode, she watches Diona die.
Yeah. So Navia, they've set Navia up in this. She's the only like 100% pure good character because even Melita, it's like okay, she's starting to have sex with Gannicus. She starts to okay, I'm going to cheat on Onomaus, and then she dies, whatever. She's still good, but in terms of like characters where nobody has done anything really bad, I think Navia is the only one that I can think of.
All right, so we're at the games have concluded, or we're at the final battle. Trying to think of like all of the relevant people because I don't think any of Salonius's men except for maybe the one giant guy even get a name that I don't remember. But it's 13.
Crixus wants Gannicus to stay alive because Crixus is like it's going to be you and me, buddy. He wants that real legitimate fight that they have yet to have.
Copper contest. Yes. And so it's going to be like the final. Whoever wins this big 20-man fight is the champion of Capua. Again, Salonius's men don't matter. They're basically just generic or nameless antagonists. On Badiatus' side, I know we have Crixus, Gannicus, Gnaeus, Dagon, and Asher. And I know there's 2 more, but I think they're just like nameless gladiators.
They're just nameless gladiators.
It's amazing that Dagon made it this far because they even mentioned in a previous episode like he can't even see from his right side anymore because he's blind. But he made it all the way to the end. So good on Dagon.
So we get to the point where most of Salonius's men have been killed, and so Crixus and Gannicus kind of start battling, but really it's Asher and Dagon. Like they start fighting while Salonius still has men left, and Badiatus is up in the Pulvinus like, what the shit's going on? Like he doesn't know what the fuck their history is. Asher somehow beats Dagon. I don't even remember like how. Like surely
it's the oldest trick in the book. He throws dirt in his eye.
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you. Blinds him in his one good eye, kills him. Did we mention that the arena's on fire? There's a ring of fire, and
I
if
did
you
say it was an Inferno match.
If you
Inferno
listen
match.
to
Okay, well, I don't know
Interrupticus,
if
Steve,
the
you would
three
know
wrestling
that.
fans left in the
Yes,
world got
yes.
that. So there's a ring of fire, and if you get killed, you're just dead. But they also say that if you get knocked like into the sand beyond the fire, even if you survive, you're out of the match. So that happens to I think Asher and Naeus. That happens to so Asher. So Naeus gets just thrown out, and he's pissed because he can't fight anymore. He's been eliminated from the Royal Rumble. It gets to the point where it's just Salonius's champion, Gannicus, Crixus, and Asher. And Gannicus and Salonius's man are fighting, and Asher's like, "Hey, Crixus, this is our chance. We can go kill them both, and then you and I will settle things." And Crixus says, "Fuck that!" And he does this. I don't even know what he does. He like taps Asher's shin with his sword, and then Asher's leg explodes. Like it looks like he just did this tiny little tap, and then suddenly Asher's bone is sticking out of his leg.
It wasn't really a tap so much as it was a full swing to his
Yeah.
shin bone. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean I would expect Kirkus to just cut that fucking leg off if he tried a full swing.
Well, I don't think
regardless,
Crixus was.
he breaks Asher's chin. Good,
Oh God, did we lose him again?
Matt. I swear.
Go
to God.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going, Steve. Keep
There
going.
you okay, you're back.
Anyways, Crixus has no interest whatsoever in allying with Asher, so he breaks Asher's leg and throws Asher out of the ring, and so Asher is now eliminated. Asher and Naeus have survived the battle, but they are no longer a part of it. So it's just Gannicus, Crixus, and Salonius' champion, and they fight. Crixus gets like sliced across the gut and then eliminated. So now it's just Gannicus and Salonius.
Gannicus saves Crixus.
Yes.
And he knocks him out of
Crixus-
the ring.
Crixus gets injured, and then Gannicus knocks him out of the way, and then Crixus gets eliminated, but again survives. So three of Badiatus' men have been eliminated, but lived through this. So now it's just Gannicus and Salonius is champion. Gannicus is getting his ass kicked, but he eventually manages to break off the tip of a spear and stab it into the guy's mouth. And then he does this motion where he like rips it out at an angle, and so like this entire guy's jaw is just like flapping in the wind at this point.
Practical effect too.
It's amazing how that one swing is so powerful. It turns this man into a rubber puppet. It's insane. It's like there's just a full force. It's incredible.
So
I appreciated that effect because most of the effects in this seem to be CG, a lot of CG blood. So I liked seeing the face being.
Man, we're not there yet, but there is a scene in Blood and Sand where a man gets his head cut off, and it is so ridiculous looking.
Yeah.
We're like 10 episodes away. We're gonna get there. But yeah, some of the effects in the show don't hold up, but most of the time it's good. And I love this effect where this guy's jaw just explodes out of where this spear was. But Gannicus wins. Gannicus is the champion. He's reveling in the applause of the arena people. And so Casudius and just other people that are up in the Pulvinus with Badiatus are like, "Oh, Gannicus is amazing. I want him for my games next month." And someone else says, "Yes, I'm having games too. Please bring Gannicus." And Badiatus is like, "Yes, I have finally made it." And then Salonius whips out his fucking Uno reverse card. Salonius is like, Spine Salonius is like, "Hey, you know what would really set these games apart from all the ones that come after it? Grant Gannicus his freedom." And Badiatus is like, "Excuse me, the fuck you say?" And all of the powerful Roman people are like, "Yeah, that's great. Like Gannicus is the champion. If we like grant him the Rudus, we grant him his freedom, people will never forget these opening games." And they turn to Badiatus and it's like, "Yeah, you can just train another gladiator, right?
They just brush it off. Like
Badiatus has no choice but to let Salonius win." So like Salonius like gets one up on Badiatus that Badiatus basically never fucking recovers from. So Gannicus is granted his freedom, and so we go back to the Ludus. Gannicus is given the Rudis, this like little wooden dagger with, I assume, like his feats and conquest
Now,
inscribed on them, and
does
that's
he
the
have to keep that on him at all times,
I
everywhere
would
he goes?
assume.
The show says he does. I don't know if historically you had to keep that Rudis on you. I don't think that element is true, but yeah, in the second season, like Gannicus, like says that if he doesn't keep it on him, he just basically just essentially goes right back into slavery. He has to have it on him at all
Yeah,
times.
because he would still have the brand on his
Yeah.
arm, right? So people could still see he's a slave, so he's got to have that.
Yep.
It seems like
So
someone would steal that. Like, it'd be
yeah,
very valuable.
I would not steal anything from Gannicus. That motherfucker will kill you. Anyways, Gannicus is granted his freedom. He comes out and he has like kind of final goodbyes to the other the other gladiators. Barca like establishes at this point that one day Barca wants his freedom. We'll pick that plot point up next season. Gannicus and Crixus share a moment where Crixus is like, we still have not had proper contest, and so Gannicus tells him, hey, earn your freedom and come find me, and we will have like an actual fight. And also, here is my necklace I've been wearing. This symbolizes that you are the champion of this house. He goes and meets Oenomaus for the last time, and Oenomaus says, or he tells Oenomaus, Melita, he reiterates, Melita loved you amongst, or more than anyone else. They hug their brothers, and then Gannicus leaves, and so Badiatus and Xena are up in whatever the spectators box of this Ludus, and Badiatus is like, I don't want anyone to mention. First, he says like, I offered Gannicus money. I told him you will absolutely not be treated like a slave. You can come and go as you please. Like, please, even though you were free, please continue to fight for me. And Gannicus says no, he wants to leave.
I'd like to pause right there real quick.
Okay.
That is something I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen that scene where Gannicus is kind of explaining maybe the reasons why that he doesn't want to stay and continue. And obviously, we could probably infer it's because Melita died there. He doesn't want to be there with all the memories of that and kind of stuff. But I would have liked to have seen one final moment between Badiatus and Gannicus before he headed out the door.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. I'm happy without it, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a deleted scene somewhere. But anyway,
you should be sad about it.
Oh, I'm not. Ploticus is well satisfied. So Gannicus leaves, and Badiatus says, like, I don't want anyone to even mention his name in the house in this house anymore. So I guess that explains why no one recognizes that Gannicus exists in season 1, Blood and Sand. Then Xena tells Badiatus, well, we got to find a new champion. How about Crixus? And so that sets up Crixus as the champion of House Badiatus in Blood and Sand. And then Badiatus is like, finally, everything's coming up, Badiatus. Like, we are winning. We are the best.
So much winning. We're going to have to lose a little bit just to remember what it was like.
One day, we are going to get what we deserve. And then it goes back to the end of season 1, where you see Badiatus dead in a pool of his blood, killed by Spartacus. The end. What a fucking series.
Loved it. It's great. Like, it's literally great. I don't know what else to say. It's just fucking great. Ronan, what are your thoughts?
I would say this is my favorite episode of this of God of the Arena.
Same.
Although, even though really, I think in my mind it is just more or less just because of this, like the scene where they wall him up inside of the arena. It's like that just sticks with you.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, that's fucking cold, and that definitely that solidifies Badiatus as the man he is in season 1. Like 100%, he is there now. So but honestly, I think the last episodes were better. Although this one is still my favorite. I don't think it's the best. It's just my favorite.
It has a really good sort of ending to, like, it leaves, other than that final shot, obviously, it leaves everybody on like okay, everything turned out all right. Gannicus got his freedom. Lucretia and Batiatus, they were able to, rise above all these other machinations that were going on. We still got good Salonius, who's going to be a problem out there going forward. But overall, it's kind of a happy ending in a way for some of the characters.
Well, yeah, I mean, Batiatus gets a couple of good years, presumably, after this.
About 5, right? About 5 good years.
Really, when you remember, this might be spoilers for season 1, but yeah, I don't really think these 5 years were very good to him when you look at how the Ludus is. In season
he's not
1.
doing good at the beginning of Blood and Sand, but I would hope that he had a couple good years in between the two, but who knows? I'm curious though, like. I think it would be an interesting experiment to see, like, someone who hadn't seen this show, if we like gave them like an edited version of Gods of the Arena. You basically cut out all of the season 1 spoilers. So the opening of episode 1 where we see Batiatus dead, cut out that whole scene. The end of this episode where we see Batiatus dead, cut out that whole scene, so no season 1 spoilers, and just have someone brand new watch it chronologically, how they would feel. I don't know.
I think that's an interesting thing, because I think that, well, again, I'll find out more when I watch these next first 3 episodes of Blood and Sand, because I think we all agree those were probably the weakest episodes we remember of the show. If they're improved at all. If I come out of the next 3 episodes saying, wow, those episodes were a lot better than I thought, based on the recency of watching this, I would say start with this, but an edited version of it. But if it turns out those first 3 are kind of shitty, like we remember them being, regardless, then I'm going to be like, okay, well, I don't think it matters that much. Although, still, Batiatus is such a cool character, and Lucretia is such a cool character. Do you want those characters' deaths spoiled like that right at the beginning of the episode 1? I don't know. I think it's a little weird.
Well, if we give them the edited copy of the episode, that wouldn't be a thing.
Right. Like in a perfect world where someone was going to go edit out those particular scenes, I would say go ahead and just start with this first, but I don't think most people are going to be able to do that. They're just going to be like, oh, Gods of the Arena, let me put it on streaming, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, these
if I had the master cut of this that I could fuck around with. Yeah. Now, Matt, you mentioned, like, when we started planning to go through this series, you said that you were going to also watch, like, the director commentary and whatnot. Was there anything interesting that you picked up?
On the DVD set I don't have the Blu-rays of Gods of the Arena. I just have the DVD set of those. I have the Blu-rays of all the others. There were no audio commentaries on any of them. Look, there's a whole disc that's bonus discs, and it's got a bunch of featurettes on it, like here's how they came up with the clothing and blah blah. But on this particular series, no, I've got nothing for this one.
You know whose copies of the Blu-rays of Gods of the Arena do have commentary? This guy's.
Oh, well, did you listen to any of them to contribute?
I did for the first 2 episodes, but then we had to kind of smash all these other ones together, so no.
Well, tell us what you learned in the first couple episodes.
Honestly, nothing really. All
right, just fucking cut this whole thing out. I thought this might go somewhere. Clearly, I was
leaving it as a point to the listeners of what happens when we put any responsibility on Ronan.
This responsibility was not put on me. It wasn't like, Ronan, your job is to watch all the audio commentary. It just so happens that I did for the first 2 episodes and did not for the other ones. And in those first 2 episodes, the commentary really doesn't offer any new perspective of, like, well, when we were writing the scene, our original goal was to do such and such. But then on the day, no, there's nothing like that.
Well, I am going to watch them because I'm going to assume that there's audio commentaries on all the rest of the Blu-rays as well. I will watch those for this. I just did not have access. I apologize to the listener out there. Sorry.
You should be.
So, and with that, I think we're done.
Yeah. We're done with Gods of the Arena. We all agree it's awesome. It's great. It's going to be really cool to sort of compare this prequel series against the other seasons, and then maybe at the end just sort of rank each season of where we place everything, because it's going to be real tough. And like I said, only the first 3 episodes of Blood and Sand are the ones we remember kind of being shitty. And I think, if I remember correctly, there's actually an interview with Stephen DeKnight where he even admitted the first 3 episodes sucked. He's like, we kind of fucked up when we were doing all this. we hit our stride later on.
Well, that's true for any TV shows. Like, you look at any show. I remember rewatching Burn Notice a couple of months ago. Uh-oh. Okay, it says success. I got a warning error. But I remember rewatching Burn Notice a couple of months ago. I was like, yeah, the first like 6 or so episodes, a lot different from what the show becomes because they hadn't found their footing yet. And that's true for any show.
Yeah. So stay tuned next Tuesday, maybe, possibly, if Ronan can find any time in his busy, responsible adult life schedule to watch these episodes and be ready for them. But we now will continue episode by episode with Spartacus Blood and Sand, the initial series that got us all into this, and we will see if our memories of it are as good as we hope they are. With that, good night.